Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second week of the Blast Premiere. Not Blast Pro Series, Blast Premiere. It's a new year, it's a new decade, it's a new name.
Oh, yes.
New
and
product.
we started all off looking beautiful last week.
Yeah, dude, that was sick.
It was
wasn't
so good.
It
Yeah,
was
it was so
good. Well, you know, I mean, we're going to actually be talking about a lot of that because
Yeah.
this happens to be the Blast Backstage.
Yeah, we're like broken down. We got cables around us. We got nicer chairs this time, though. I'm happy
Yeah,
with that.
it's actually chilly in here. You
Oh,
know.
you cold?
Got the, you know, hey, but you see, still on brand.
Doing well.
Pro.
Let's get one of these bombers made then in blast style, then we'll be laughing.
Please hand
There
that
you
over
go.
to me. I'm all about it. But let's take a look. Actually, I do believe we have an intro to look at before we hop into things. So let's take a look at that now. You just make the rules, don't you?
Oh, yeah, we were getting makeup. Well, I was getting makeup. That's why we're a little bit late.
Don't worry, we can't see a single wrinkle.
And I want to let the record show
Something about
that I
Ravi or
brought
something.
this notebook, but it's actually empty. I just got it.
Oh.
It did look a bit fresh.
I've only written a little bit in here.
Who's got the dog-eared one? There is one that's
I
pretty
did,
beaten
but I
up.
left
Was
that
that
one
you?
in the hotel room. Actually,
Okay.
no, I left that one at home. I didn't even bring it. That
didn't
one's
even bring
done.
one?
It's out of pages now.
Could have been used for. I mean, what you don't need to go over any of your info from last week.
No, not really.
No.
He lives this game.
He knows
Talk
it.
him out, yeah.
Inside and out.
All right.
Okay, so there's a method to some of the madness here, at least.
Right.
And we're not alone. Same as last week, it's going to be the four of us here discussing, well, not only last week's matches, but this week's matches. But we also have Launders and Scrawny. So Launders and Scrawny, where are you guys at?
Thanks, guys. That's right. Here we are back in the studio yet again for the Blast Premiere Week 2. It's the all-access backstage extravaganza. Launders, we've got a lot of Counter-Strike coming up.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed week 1. This one is going to be the group of death. We've got Astralis, Na'Vi, Vitality, and Complexity finally there at the end. You might forget about them. Don't forget about them. They're going to have to work hard for a win, but it's going to be fun to see if they can pull it off.
Guys, don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
You're right. We will see you soon, Scrawny. Thank you for that, and I'm sure it's going to be enlightening what they're going to be up to, supporting us here on the main stage because we're all this is what we're about. We're about talking about last week.
Yeah, we're doing it live. They had like 6 or 7 takes of that one. So we do it live. You know, it's all good. But they'll get there eventually.
It's a fresh new notebook, though. I don't expect you to throw that.
At whom?
Just
Oh,
as a
no, the
skit or
reference.
something.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
Yeah, I'm a little bit slow today. I don't know what it is, but yeah, they said when you don't have to work until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you kind of start to do it pretty slow. So I'm feeling good. I'm ready for some more Counter-Strike talk. What are we diving into? Anything in particular?
Well, we have a recap of last week.
Ooh,
So we
okay.
can take a look at some of that as well and get that on. Because, I mean, lots of great action kicking off the first week of Blast Premiere. That's pretty much what we were all about.
Liquid liquefying the bed.
Not bad.
FaZe, unfazed. Ha ha ha. But yeah, FaZe nip.
So what I guess the biggest takeaway from last week, right, was FaZe actually coming in and playing
Legit.
a brand of Counter-Strike that is looking respectable, right? They had well-rehearsed strategies. They were playing off of each other well as a team. We learned throughout the week that Cold Zera, as the 2IC, kind of in collaboration with Nico, are working as a two-man brain team with Yanko behind them calling the shots. Brokey with the role change as well, Olaf being put on the flanks. That's kind of all the stuff we got caught up with FaZe very quickly. And beating Liquid in 2 best-of-3s.
Legit.
Yeah, so look, really good stuff from FaZe. That has to be the highlight of last week for sure.
And here's the thing, even though FaZe, I mean, obviously Blast was actually the most successful circuit for them last year. They even won that title towards the end of the year, Copenhagen. That's 1 best-of-3. The rest is a bunch of predetermined best-of-1s, not predetermined in terms of scripted, but I mean, you already know the map you're
Matchups,
playing,
yeah.
these things. So it does make it a different flavour from what we think of as the traditional Counter-Strike in the circuit. So this is a GSL group. You won 2 best-of-3s. They were both 2-0, and even though, yeah, you had a couple of close maps, I mean, when you get 2-0, one of them should be close. It's their map pick. So the fact that you smashed them on the other 2, I thought was very impressive. Like, I do say you have to take some of it into account when you have the Team Liquid discussion. They looked outrageously bad. They even admitted it probably is the worst they've ever played with this lineup.
Yeah.
But like you say, there's no excuse for
No.
taking the credit away from FaZe. If you beat them twice in a row, and crucially for me, it brings back the hype that I'd pretty much cancelled the parade for the whole, let's see what happens when Nico and Cold Zero play together. It looked like it was a bust before. Now it looks awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the problems, right? Is without direction. You even had players coming out after the fact being like, we should never have gotten rid of Carrigan, right? And that was pretty, that was pretty evident, right, at the time when it happened. But that discussion right there, when you lose faith in an in-game leader, it's very difficult to get that back, especially when you have a team like FaZe, which is built on star players, right, who have big egos and they deserve them because they're great players. So when that happens, this new maneuver, this new way that they pivoted, it wasn't working when it was just Nico, but getting Cold in here, having another point was that they had a chance to practice now. We saw them doing boot camps. They had to qualify for Katowice, then they had a boot camp before they came in here, and they were looking great. And I think the way that the season's going to progress for a lot of the teams, at least in the top 10, is they will have opportunities to go and have boot camps before the big event.
Yeah.
And we should be seeing all the teams playing at a relatively high standard if they're all going to, take it as seriously as they should, which seems like FaZe are going to do that.
And
What
that's
were your
Liquid
impressions, Jay?
said, no.
Oh, no, go ahead. What were your...
So that was what Liquid said with the error, right? They started
Yeah.
practice a bit later and they didn't boot camp before it. When we were talking, they weren't happy with that, and it goes to show.
How are the shoes, Semmler?
Or they want, you can't just give excuses. Why are they doing that?
They're so
Yeah, you're right,
comfy.
actually. We all thought if we didn't practice, we'd be bad. All right, we'll give you salary back then, you stupid idiot. Do your job. I'll never understand people like that. It's like, yeah.
I wouldn't mind talking like this map right here.
Straight away.
This one right here that went on down. We all know that this was a huge amount of clutches that had to come
Yeah.
through for
Yes.
Liquid to be able to get across the line in this regard.
This
right?
is ominous to begin with, wasn't it?
But that's kind of showing that the individuals still have it. If they'd actually practiced a bit more as a team, maybe the cohesion, maybe the communication would have been on point a little bit more. But the problem here is I'm not 100% because I may have misheard Elijah's interview, but it sounded like when he was talking about the calendar, he was saying he thinks it's just
He did.
packed.
Yeah, he said it to me basically that he thinks that it's not as clean cut as what it should have been. Not as clear as what he thought.
Okay, so let me lay this out for everybody at home, right? If you're starting the year and you're one of these blast teams, you're one of the 12 teams, you're going to come and play one group. You play 3 days of Counter-Strike. Then, depending on where you played it, you're going to have anywhere from 3 weeks off to 1 week off before the Katowice event, right? That's heaps of time, right? That's a lot of time. That's more time than what they would normally have. Then after Katowice, depending on which league you're playing in, you're going to have, a period of time off after Katowice before the next one. So there's more time to either have the downtime or do more practice depending on where you're playing, right? So it feels like to me that there's going to be dips where Team Liquid can hopefully come to Europe, can hopefully get some boot camps in because we want them to go back to that team that we were loving from last year. This obviously wasn't it. People are like, oh, it's a long season. There's a lot to ramp into. Sure, they don't have to go through the minors. The minors are going to take up a big chunk of the year as well, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to play in the first stage of the major. You have to consider all of these bits and pieces where these guys are going to have longer runs to get going, and that's all great. But if it was me, I would want to start 2020 on the right foot, not on one where you're resenting the way that you started the year with poor practice or you're going, oh, we should have done. When you get blown out of the water and you make a statement like that was probably the worst Counter-Strike we've ever played, that's not the way I would want to start 2020. I don't want to start nice.
Plus, like I say, it just isn't. Here's the thing: it is an excuse. It's just that there's that great quote like, "Excuses are like assholes. Everyone has them, and they all stink." Like no one cares. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah, you didn't practice, and therefore you're bad. Right, that just logically follows. It's not like that's something unfair from the universe. But I didn't practice and I'm bad. It's like, think about this, right? The other angle is, but we were just in NA and there's no one good there. Yeah, because NA only has 2 really good teams right now. You and Evil Geniuses, and they weren't practicing. So, yeah, I guess Hundred Thieves as well, sort of in the region. But MIBR's whack at the moment. Cloud9 and Gen G have done things with it. Like, at the moment, if it's logical, if you want to get good boot camp practice, you'll have to come to Europe.
Yeah.
And if you were the best team in the world, you're supposed to just accept that. That's part of being the best. Yep. So, it's not like it's fair in the sense that, Europeans are already in Europe. But if you want to be the best, you got to do what it takes.
Well, that's what 100 Thieves do, right? They spend probably more time in Europe than they do in North America.
Katowice last year was mental.
Yeah, and the whole thing is with this whole situation is they've already made the sacrifice of living in North America, right? 5 of those players, all 5 of them, and the coach are not North American, from birth. They all are from overseas. Obviously, Jacob from Europe and the rest of them from Oceania.
Yeah.
They've made that sacrifice, right? So they are well aware. They tell me every time, the only place you're going to get good practice is if you come to Europe, right? And you think about it, even if you played in North America, how many maps can you play against Liquid and EG before you go, well, they know everything we do and practice is actually quite pointless now?
I've got a spicy topic for you. You ready?
Okay, hold on to it.
Here we go.
Hold on to it because we have to take a 2-minute
All right.
break and we'll come back and we'll get on the spice.
Nice.
Now it's all hyped.
All right.
What if
Very
it's
quick
rubbish?
break. And we'll be right back with the spice. Don't go anywhere.
Spice was fun.
Thanks, guys, for your patience. I know you were all waiting for it, so let's hear it, Duncan.
The spice must flow.
The spice must flow.
Here's the question. So the spring finals are in like June, isn't it? The actual like finals themselves, the ones that are in Moscow. I believe it's in June. And obviously the very end of the whole year of Blast is going to be like, I'm going to assume again, it's going to be more like October, November or something. Here's the question, right? Does Team Liquid get to the spring finals in June, which will be after the major, with this lineup?
Well, they are there.
No, you've missed the point.
No,
Will
well,
these
they
five
still be the
players
same
be wearing
team.
the Team Liquid
Good point.
jersey?
Good point.
That's
Fair
quite
enough,
often.
fair
Now there'll
enough.
be a major. There'll be a like. Remember that it's not like a tournament where you just play the playoffs right afterwards. You come
Yeah.
back months and months later. So I'm wondering. Listen, it's only took one tournament. Obviously, they were still very good last year. But if you had to chart some of the things that would have to go wrong, that would make you change the lineup. Whether it's one person getting kicked or it's someone leaving and going to a team they'd rather play for, this would be the first thing you'd put on the list. Like the way that they lost, even the situation in which they lost.
It'd have to be contingent because they have to get someone from the North American region, right? I highly doubt they dip into European waters. So that would be contingent on EG also having a bad major, I think, right? If EG have a bad major,
Absolutely doable right now.
If EG have a bad major and Liquid have a bad major, then there's the possibility there, right? And I would say, let's say 100 Thieves, somehow everything falls apart, right? Let's just say something horrible happens with the team. There's a massive block. I'll be looking to get JKS, you know? So there's some names, but you're not dipping down into the talent pool of North America.
No, not
right?
yet.
Not on the Whippies of the world, not on any Whippy had to go back to Europe, I think, anyway. But not on these kids who have come up through the ranks recently, because there's only one of those names which is still contesting in the top team, right? And that would be Obo, who's playing for Complexity.
Yep.
Whereas the rest of them, like Zelsa's had a shot, you know, a couple of these names have had shots and they didn't impress initially. So I think it'd be difficult for Liquid to go for one of those names. But I don't think so. I reckon they'll ride it out. They'll probably do both majors of the year. Be stubborn with it.
The thing is, when you say it like that, so all they need is EG to stay the same, 130. Like the odds that three teams keep the same lineup for like as long as they will. That's pretty unusual in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I think though with the way that the year is structured a little bit more, it's going to allow teams to reevaluate as opposed to just being so rash with decisions. Because in the past, when things aren't working, it's like they don't actually get a chance to sit down and go, well, this is the clear problem, right? On the road, I imagine your resentment for certain things build up, or somebody just starts to irk you in a little way in the traveling, or you're having a buddy in the hotel room and he's annoying for everybody, and then everyone just let's get rid of him, right?
Yeah.
Not saying it's all made on personal decisions, because now the teams have,
It's definitely a factor though if you're on the road.
of course. So I think that could be a factor that plays in, but now that there should be more downtime, hopefully it's okay. But once again, we have the same issue, and we touched on it with the desk with Liquid, is the sense that Stewie has to be the emotional leader for the team, unless they all just play super placid, which means Stewie has to become like a deaf mute at that point.
Well, for me, right, you talk about the whole thing of Stewie rising them up. Why don't you just put maybe like Adren, for example, into more of like an analyst role than a coach, and have someone behind them who can actually hype him up? Because when Stewie had bad games, you just watched them all really flat.
Yeah.
They were quiet as hell.
That's a question, though, that where do you get a coach from, right? Because once again, this whole coaching situation is one that hasn't been completely nutted out yet. Anybody can do it, right? You can get people who weren't even professional Counter-Strike players at any point doing coaching roles because they just, you know. So what kind of personality are we looking for here?
We're looking for
hype man,
we're
someone
looking
just
for a
to boost-
cheerleader.
Yeah,
Jason Lake,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, just get the red tie on a guy, put him behind him,
Kick some
and let him
chairs.
go.
Problem is, like, this angle is whack, though. The idea that, like, well, they're just four quiet players, and it's only Steve we can do it. Like, what? Not a single one of you can be a leader.
No,
this
that's
is
the thing,
outrageous.
right?
Like, I'd be getting them, and forget CS. I'd be taking them off. I'd be teaching them the ways of stoicism every day, questioning them with the Socratic method. What are you thinking about right now? Like, having them perform feats of strength,
Cold
show that they-
showers every morning.
overcoming adversity, doing treks through the mountains, having to navigate their way out of dangerous situations. Only one survives. At the end of it, you're going to have one legendary leader right there who's going to be made of sterner stuff. A man I'd follow in a battle any day.
Sounds like the start of 300.
It's also secretly my way to get rid of the roster move.
There it is.
Just while we've got this on the screen, right? There was some moments here where, like, that's a great clutch from Stewie. But that game right there, and in multiple maps against FaZe, Liquid started pretty hot. You know, they had like 5 or 6
5-1,
rounds,
yeah.
right? And then they just fell apart. FaZe, and I guess you could look at FaZe.
They even said it in the interview. I think it was Elite. It was so whack when they were going like, you know, even when we would get a start and be up like 5-0,
Didn't feel like we're winning.
Didn't feel like we
Yeah.
were winning. Like,
It's like, what? What is going on?
There was lots of clutch rounds, lots
Man
of
alive.
close rounds in that like the Dust 2 game where Nico had that 1-on-3 situation. Cold Zero got gifted that 1v4 on the B
That was
bomb
Yeah,
side.
that was just silly.
Yeah, they were giving away a lot of those kind of rounds.
That was a rare example of a 1v4 that was a mistake from the 4 people.
Yeah,
Not as much one
not
person
like
winning it.
not
yeah.
like Chris J's 1v5.
No, that was brilliant.
That was a completely
fantastic,
different situation.
And anyone with eyes to see would agree.
Yeah, maybe he didn't watch the clutch. You never know. Maybe he hasn't seen it yet. We haven't spoken about MIBR. Maybe that's for the best.
Intentional.
That's
Yeah.
intentional. That's
It's
the
a bit
thing.
Okay.
I mean, right now we've got replays of obviously Liquid and FaZe.
Yeah.
Going at it. And that was one hell of a match from
Well,
FaZe.
Joe, we didn't touch on Nip yet, and actually, considering how bad the first game was for him, it was like looking really awkward.
Yeah.
They improved day in, day out.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things, right? Because you have to, I think the viewer at home needs to understand that NIP having Naught come in, this was his first like step in the right direction, well, step into the tier 1s. So a lot of learning for him. We saw moments. Rez had some bad days, and then he had a really
the last day.
and that's great. Well, as well, because what we got to see is almost everybody on the team. I think Plopsky had a rough tournament, but everywhere else on the team had moments,
Sure.
and that's a really good sign for the future of the team.
Side note, though, what do we think about Plopsky signing a 3-year contract with Nip right now?
Listen, I've said this before. It just doesn't make any... I've tried to think every possible scenario if you're the player. And it doesn't matter what level of player you are. It never makes sense for you to have a contract more than 1 year. It makes a lot of sense for the team. Like, for example, I understand why the default is 2 years because I don't want to put all this money into building a squad now. By the way, not even with contracts starting at the same time. So I want to keep that squad together for at least a year if it's good. And I want it to be my choice if I remove you. So I get it that the teams make industry standard 2 years. The reason it never makes sense for the player goes like this. Let's say you're the best player in the world. Well, brilliant. At the end of the year, you can now get a new salary upgrade to the highest salary in the world. Whereas instead, the best player in the world usually in Counter-Strike is actually behind whoever signed his most recent contract.
Yeah.
Then the other angle is, let's say you're bad. That's where the player gets trapped. He goes, yeah, that's exactly why I want the 3-year contract. What if I suck? Have you ever seen a player just keep like getting allowed
You just
in the
get
main
benched.
roster, getting all his salary for 3? It never happened ever.
You get taken out.
You get put on
Yeah.
the bench, which nearly always has a clause that reduces your salary, so you've just trapped yourself to a lower salary there. Secondly, because you're bad, and you usually don't return from the bench to teams in most teams. That's just they're waiting to sell you. They will wait, and suddenly all the teams that actually would take a gamble on you, that you might even want to join, might even be a good deal.
Yeah.
Now they have to play what I call the buyout dance, where I offer this much, but then he pretends he doesn't want to sell him, but then I would sell him if you went up a little bit more, but then is that enough? And then it takes 6 months, and you're just trapped in what we call contract prison. So I get it for teams. If you're the team, you should try and sign the best players as long as you can. They're a commodity to you. If you're a player, like I don't get why these guys are so proud when they sign these big contracts. I actually think it's a really dangerous situation to put
Some
yourself
people,
in.
though, will think like, so I agree with what you're saying, Duncan, but I can see from some of these younger players, like, the security on paper, right? They feel like, do you know what? Okay, I've got this for the next few years. And he is really young as well, so it depends on who's advising him at the same time.
Ask Kiyashima about security from contracts. I think he's still off in a pit somewhere in the Middle East trying to make that jump onto that that swing or whatever it was, in reference to the Dark Knight Rising.
Of
course.
Yeah.
Just check.
Yeah.
Checking everyone's with me.
The Middle East.
Checking everyone's with me.
Just throwing somebody for
I
a
think
loop there.
the Furia guys signed 5-year contracts.
5 years,
right?
yeah.
But then Abel J was one of those guys, and now what's he doing? Right? Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know the particulars there, but like, where is he?
Yes,
what's
exactly.
What's he? Because he's not playing at a top Brazilian team because there's only 2 of them, and he's not in either of those, right? So it's a situation for him. They just replaced him with Henny, and Henny became available. So I think that if you're signing contracts that long, at least get a lawyer to read it, boys. You know, at least get a lawyer.
just
Maybe he
gonna
had a lawyer to read it, but then
Maybe.
the thing is, does a lawyer understand all of the variables that Duncan just described
Sure.
that we've just
No.
talked about? Probably not.
Nah.
The lawyer's probably thinking, sweet, 3-year contract, you're on there for good, mate, take it.
I'm also just going to say, listen, you know that term now, it's such a dreaded, cursed term, optics, like the way things appear to the public. It's like a political term, basically, a buzzword, right? The optics don't look great.
You
If
work
you're
at
the
Blizzard.
NIP, listen,
Okay.
enough of that. So the optics don't look great if you're ninjas in pajamas with all of the things that happen to them in, I don't know, the last 6 months, a lot of the things surrounding their organization, that they are then like, good news, that young talent, he's locked in for 3 years. They'll throw away the key.
Yeah. Well,
But you're
there's
going to
obviously-
develop him, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to develop the shit out of that boy.
And on that, no, we are done discussing last week. That's it for last week. We're going to come back after a break for the great debate where we will, talk about what's coming up this week. See you. So that was a reminder of the 12 teams that we have competing here in the Blast Premier this year. But the other thing that we want to take a look at before we start getting into the discussion of what's coming up this week is the seeding. So we're going to take a look real quick at some of the seedings here. Exactly. These are the overall 12-team seedings. And just to remind you all as well, the teams picked these seedings one for the other.
Yeah, so that's what's quite unique, and I learnt after we talked about this the first time that I believe that this was done last year as well.
Okay.
So,
End of last year, yeah.
Yeah, so with that in mind, people couldn't have gone into this year knowing how good teams were in practice.
From scrims,
right? Yeah.
yes.
Are we able to? Yeah, here we go. So just with this on the screen, right? Because a lot of things here which people would be questioning. How can Vitality be that low, right? When you consider last year in that chunk of time with FaZe and Na'Vi in their current states, why would you have Vitality below both of those teams if it was done last year? We didn't know that FaZe were going to come
I
out
can
the
give you a
gate.
speculation.
All right.
Every time I ever talk to any other team or pros, they don't think Vitality is good.
Okay.
They really do think ZywOo just carries them. Like, that's not a fan meme. We didn't make that up. Like, actually, a lot of the other pros don't give a lot of credence to Vitality.
So that has to be at least one
Makes sense in that sense.
could have
Yeah.
come
Like,
from,
I
right?
put it this way, I would have had them higher than that. Like, I would have had them above FaZe Clan. Give them props. I'd probably have them
last
above
year,
Na'Vi.
yeah, for sure. I think obviously the bottom complexity coming in last makes sense considering, and OG for that matter, considering when they were compiled. MIBR, that speaks to their woes. I guess a lot of teams probably behind the scenes knew that Forest was going, but publicly that wasn't something that was known at the time. And then, yeah, G2, they're yet to really prove themselves in the tier 1 realms. They've had some up and down results. So as far as things considered, I think the only one that really matters there, Astralis, still the best team in the world as per usual.
I think actually the one, especially knowing that the players decided this, that I'm the most impressed with is, first of all, like that they all still think Team Liquid was number 2, despite not winning any of the tournaments, even though, yeah, they had a lot of close games. But then the other one is that they've been so, they've given so much praise to 100 Thieves. Because I agree, I think 100 Thieves have a really great base, but since they're also a team that don't really win the tournament, you often wonder, in the past, I would have said people tended to respect someone like a Vitality who just wins the one big event here, or Evil Geniuses. So it's actually nice to see them sort of give credit to 100 Thieves becoming such a good team.
I think 100 Thieves have taken the place that Ents vacated. The stable team with fundamentals who play off of each other very well and have individuals who can be really, really good, but most of the time they're just playing probably at their 80% level and getting it done off the teamwork and the good strategies and the great preparation that they have, right? And I think 100 Thieves took that when Ents decided they wanted to get rid of their in-game leader and completely destroy their own project. So
just remember, Dents is still a team. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Right? Well, I don't know for how much longer at this rate. Like, that result that they just had was abysmal. They're not here. We shouldn't talk about them. Don't worry about them. We don't.
To be fair, they could come through the open qualifier.
Yeah, so if that's the case, we'll talk about them then, but things could change between now and then. We're asking questions about, like, obviously Alu's taken over the in-game leadership role and Sunny's come in, but Sunny, when he was on Mouse Sports, was considered the best player in Mouse Sports.
Yeah, he was doing sick.
Right, so with Sunny gone, or at least not living up to that level, Sergey, I picked him in my fantasy team in the Ice Challenge event that we just had. He went like minus 40 in points. Now, I don't know what that translates to exactly with stat lines. I haven't looked at his actual numbers, but that's not I picked him as one of my star players, right? So
problem is that's one of the main issues they have in that squad. Even though adding Sonny on paper added more firepower, Sergey as a player, like, he's not a consistent superstar player. He's a pretty good player. He's still very young as well, to be fair. Like, he's still in that category with, like, Broline, in my opinion. So I think it's pretty tough to expect him to be like a simple Aussie. Those people have skewed everyone's expectations for what a player can be. Like, if you track his career, he's still going on the up. The line's still going up on the graph. It's just that he can have tournaments where he's not that good. And when he has that right now, Ents has nothing because they don't have the tactical base. Anyway, we are now just talking about Team Liquid. So. Right, that's done. They're done. They're out.
We've actually got a VT to take a look at here for Group 2 to kind of get us warmed up.
Is it like Launders hula hooping or something?
Yes, actually, that is. It's Vitality goes round and round. ZywOo, I think, or Launders.
There you go.
Whichever it is.
You spin.
So you have it, Group 2. Pretty,
I'm expecting a real hype VO out of that from you next time. Group 2, and then get your cans in the
I can't follow that up. I mean, it's the
that's what the
super
people
epic
wanted.
music and everything. Oh, we got to go into it.
It's all right. I'll let you off the hook next.
Let me off the hook this time, okay?
You got next week as well.
We're all rolling with it.
All right.
So The others who are rolling with it, well, happen to be us, because we can talk about Group 2 right now, and then I've got something special to take a look at after that. But any impressions right off the bat? Quick thoughts, Group 2?
It's going to be a bit of a tough time for complexity.
They've just got to show us something, Chad, right?
Yeah.
Show us something that you've been working on. Give us some hope, maybe.
Well, haven't they just had a really rough week?
Well, yeah, they didn't even make it. They didn't make it past the best of ones in the most recent minor qualifier as well, right? So they've come all the way over here to Europe because they have to play in the European qualifier. For people that aren't aware, Complexity have 3 European players, 2 North American players. They have to compete over here, so it's going to be tough for them. Especially when you have Astralis, who had the 3rd best player in the world, Na'Vi, who have the 2nd best player in the world, and Vitality, who have the best player in the world. So I don't know where any of the guys from Complexity ranked on the 1 to 20. I don't think it was anywhere.
No one in that.
It's going to be pretty tough for them, right? Considering they're a new team, they're up against the elements.
What do you make of it, Duncan?
Yeah, I have no expectations for Complexity at all. Like right now, they're only fulfilling the not part of Juggernaut. There's nothing going on there. The thing is, they actually have like a decent pool of players. I don't mind the pickups and the particular players, but I don't feel as though this is the final roster of this team. Like I think in maybe even just 3 months they're going to make a player change. I don't know who it'll be. We'll see. So I'm kind of writing them off in this group. What obviously is interesting is the other 3 teams. I mean, there's a lot that can go on there. The matchups are going to be so interesting. Who plays who? Like actually, now, as I said before, we can see the real battle of Simple versus ZywOo. They're actually at least both AWPers now again. They're both the star players. They're both being set up, hopefully, by their teams. That's the match I wanted to see last year, but we were kind of denied to some degree.
And Device can show them that all doesn't matter by just beating
just
them.
win the tournament.
Yeah.
So, being the better team in general, not relying on one player.
I think, like, as much as it would be a really cool thing in your cabinet to have best player in the world for this year, I would much prefer to have the most majors ever won, or all these trophies, or all this prize money. Like, I'd take the victories. I'll take the and I'd probably know deep down that I'm fulfilling my role better than anybody else in the rest of the world, right? So I think that there is a win for me if I was Device, which I'm not, but I was never even close to being that good. So
You'll take
anything, basically.
In your fans' hearts.
Yeah.
He made that seem reasonable. Like, you know what? I'd give up all those #1 player in the world trophies tomorrow if I could get that major.
Yeah.
You'd never had any Chad.
I wasn't even. I don't think if I can even count my like top 3 placings in tournaments. I think we made like 2nd one time. We lost to Cloud9 at 4 a.m. in the morning at an RGN LAN because the organizer wouldn't listen to us about the fact that you don't have SSDs and we're having to reset up every time.
Was that the one where Hiko justifiably received the death sentence? I believe is how
that
it's
was
phrased,
the one.
right?
Okay. That was the one. There was like some cable that got knocked out of some variety.
Okay.
And
somehow, yeah.
I don't know how.
Someone had a screw loose.
I think it would. I think. Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah. Right, because here's the thing. I also think, unfortunately, the name value is awesome when you see Astralis, Na'Vi, Vitality. You think this, what a crazy 3-way tag. The problem is, of the big names, I would say Vitality and Na'Vi are 2 of the least likely to beat Astralis. Like, if you look at the styles they play, I don't think they have particularly super great tactical depth.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I can certainly see the superstar players having a great game and potentially giving us some really exciting Counter-Strike. But if you wanted to have names that were going to beat Astralis, you want Evil Geniuses, Mouse Sports. Oh, I said it. They could still come through the open qualifier. You want these teams. These are the teams that could do it. So I actually think there's the big test if you're those 2 teams. Not only if you're those squads you're trying to get through, top 2, but can either of you beat Astralis? Because at the moment, I wouldn't put my money on it.
Yeah, I think one of the positives for Vitality is they were, if you put them in a similar position that we put FaZe in the sense of they made a roster change in the second half of the season and they didn't have a window of time to really practice. This is the Shox edition for those people who missed it, the same as the Cold Zero edition to FaZe, that now they've had time to practice. So if they can have done even what half of FaZe have done, at least in terms of getting it together, and the players are finding more impact, because before it was, if you look at the stats, this isn't just us talking shit. This is like, if you look at the stats, you have ZywOo on like plus 1,000, something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then everybody else on the team is on minus. That's the KD differential, right? The numbers don't lie.
1,600, I think it was. It was some
just
bonkers
something
number.
Insane.
Yeah.
But if you can get a little bit more out of Apex, if you can get a little bit more out of Shox, then we start talking about something that we can actually get excited about, and that's what I'm hoping to see.
You know who else are used to talking about insane numbers?
Duncan?
Astralis CEO.
There you go. There you go. There you go. We got CEOs.
We're on the same wavelength. That's the thing, me and you, Semmler. We're on the same wavelength.
We've been around too long. We just naturally gravitate back together, Duncan. We're going to take a quick look at a video where the CEOs give us some thoughts on Blast Premier.
I think from the outside, if you start looking at get the kind of results you guys got as soon as Simple joins. Obviously one of the all-time great players. From the outside, you kind of have to back Simple at that point. Not to say that there is like a conflict internally, but like that's how I kind of think of it as, like it's always someone's team to some extent.
So curious from the outside, whose team would you say Astralis is?
I think it's Device's team.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay.
There's nothing in there about Tesla, so I'm a bit disappointed.
You know,
I'm confused. Is that like a teaser to something longer that people can see on YouTube or something? What?
Yeah, I retweeted it
Like-
on YouTube.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just a teaser then.
But there's 3 people who.
what's the
Or does he answer? Who does he say his team it is? Does he go?
Device.
Does he wait back? No. I mean, when
Oh,
what does Nick-
Naha.
I
Okay.
think what he does, I'm predicting, right? I think he sits back and he goes, "Is that what do you think?" And then when they go, "What did you say, Nicola? Whose team is it?" And he'd go, "I would say it's everybody's team because it's a player-owned dog, and it's teamwork's all about everyone joining in. And when you all do that, it's like, right, and who's the CEO of the company? Just me. I got all the money. I'm the one who did it all. It's all me. It's me all along. So."
Okay.
You don't even have to watch it now. You just seen it, right? So delete the board, put that up in place of it. Just put
I feel like the answer will be Zonic.
probably.
But
That's
I
probably
like
his answer.
yours
That's
is pretty
also
realist.
That's also, by the way,
realistic answer.
if that is the answer, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
I love that answer.
That's a great yeah, because that's the way that they position that team being
Sure.
run, right? Is from the position of, Zonic gets to bench whoever he wants. He's the big man in control here. And that's great because then he can keep all the egos of the players in check and all that kind of stuff. Yep. And they've gotten to this point, so if it's not broken, don't fix it. Just keep Zonic as that big boy behind him yelling and getting it done because something's working.
Also, let's be real. There is a difference between when you have Astralis. That's like being one of those like superstar NFL players who has like a Lamborghini and a Ferrari and a Porsche, and he's just picking, should I drive the Bentley today, or is this more of a Lambo day? The other team, like Simple's one, is like you've got one stud racehorse, you've got like one old knackered nag, you've got one like baby foal that just came out now. It's like, oh, which one of the horses is your favourite? I wouldn't want to say. They're all pretty good. It's like, shut up. Like, those two guys are a very different situation. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, guys. I think it's probably Simple's team within Na'Vi.
Yeah.
At this point in time,
It has been since he joined, so that's
be
the
real.
way it should be.
And at this point in time, I think half of his village like works for Na'Vi. So at this point in time, it's definitely his team.
And on that note, as I try to control myself, on that note, we are actually going to get an interview real quick from, I believe, Launders and Scrawny. They have
haven't heard
players
enough
from
of them yet.
Astralis.
And we've got one more burning and pressing question here. The question that's on everybody's mind.
Everybody's.
Who wore it better, guys? Who wore the Blast champion hoodie better? Yeah, just pretend we're not here. No pressure.
Yeah, okay. I would say this one. This one right here.
Launders, you're going
That's
for
like this looks like a model, right?
I will take pity points, sympathy points.
this one.
Okay, there we go. 3.
Yeah, I think this one.
Don't make it seem like it's like that.
It's a bad choice.
It's not
It is
unreasonable.
a bad choice. If I'm not mistaken, that's 3-1.
Okay.
So 3-1. I'm sitting comfortable, boys. Thanks a lot.
That was the question.
Hello.
It's fascinating.
At least there was no darts in that one.
Yeah,
No darts.
Happy with
Yeah.
that. We got bored of that after a while.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe there will be darts,
No.
unfortunately. But I don't know what were we meant to take from that.
No, that was actually, this is all done a little bit off the cuff here. That wasn't the correct clip. We'll be getting to the actual clip that we need to be.
Makes sense now.
The old bait and switch.
Just keeping you guys on your toes. Yeah. But, gentlemen, Astralis,
Do we have the correct clip?
we do.
We just need
By the
some
way,
time.
just as an aside, that just reminds me of that hilarious. You know when Fogley got kicked out of Envy?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he wrote this big twit longer.
Okay.
And in it, right, he's telling this really serious story about how they screwed him over and people lied to him and he was kept on the hook the whole way and at the end they kicked him out. And then he goes at the end and he just summarizes it and goes, so, like, suffice to say, I was debated. It's like, why are you even using weird, like, Twitch terminology like that about your real life? Is this what the modern generation's like, Chad?
No, it
Are they
is.
actually like,
It really is.
oh,
It is.
Grandma's gone, PogChamp?
No, they do, Duncan.
It's not a
You
joke.
have seen that clip,
That's
have you
mental.
not?
That's just mental.
Just look for
It
all
can't
the
be real.
crazy tweets you get.
Can't be
You'll
real.
find it.
It's it's hurting me just thinking about the amount of people that I've actually had conversations with who use Twitch emotes as words in conversation.
Well, you've never been in Dota 2, have you? That's they
Yeah,
invented
okay,
that game.
but-
Twitch took that from them.
Okay, well, Counter-Strike has always been like the jock.
Have
of
you
the
heard of
esports,
Sing
right?
Sing?
Yeah.
I don't worry about their stuff, man. They're the chess club of esports, right?
Nerds.
That's
Giving them
nerds.
too much credit.
No, but
okay, fine,
like,
fair enough.
you know what I mean?
Remember that time that one rolled upon Richard's nerds? They need to stay in their place.
The Call of Duty guys, they're like the frat boys. You
There
know,
we
we're
go.
like the jocks. You've got the Dota guys, they're like the chess club. You've got League of Legends, they're like the checkers club. You know, we've got all these...
StarCraft do all of our accounts.
What were we even
There
talking
we go.
about? Where were we even going?
Well, he was going to go into the real video.
So where's the
What's
fighting
real
game
video?
community? You know, what are those guys? Are those guys just like the? Because I mean,
They're
you've
the
already got
gangs.
the frat boys and the jocks.
I don't know.
They're the
People who can't
smokers.
afford PCs. That's
Fair
why they
point.
pay like 50 cents at a time or whatever. Like,
Consoles
when the
really
stays on,
expensive?
you pay the next game.
Consoles are expensive.
Yeah,
just a
consoles are
one-off
mad
buy.
expensive.
No, because that fighting games come from
Sorry?
when they were playing in all
Oh,
the arcades.
okay.
Button
Like,
bashing.
I remember when I was a
Whatever,
kid,
you know.
I couldn't afford a PlayStation,
No.
but enough of
All
that.
right, actually, okay, the fighting game community are just like the ones that are smokers, bunking off glass in the back of the...
Okay,
There
they're
you go.
the
Bad
misfits
boys.
a little bit.
Could
Yeah,
we go
okay,
for that? Yeah, the punks.
All
you
right.
know, okay.
What other
fine.
games we got?
You know, some other punks that we had a quick talk with. I'm told we have the correct clip, so we're gonna go ahead and listen to what Astralis, Glaive, and Debris have to say.
How's it going, guys? Here we are at Blast Premier Week 2. I'm standing here with the champions of Blast. Global Finals, that is, but not necessarily the Premier. How you guys doing?
Doing good. I got my chicken with me, and I got my good Ingham the Glaive here, so I'm doing perfect.
Where's the egg come from?
I have literally no idea.
I just showed you.
Oh, the flap? Somewhere here.
There it is. That's where the egg come from. Quick question. How's my Danish? Hvor er toilettet?
Toilet.
If you really want to see the bathrooms, it's outside in a box or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not, the smell is not.
Wait, where are you going to the bathroom, bro? There's bathrooms over here. Really? No, I was just kidding.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear.
You guys are the kings of the group of death. Any pressure for you guys?
I don't know. I mean, it's the first tournament of the year, so everything can happen. I think we have had some good preparations in terms of practice at home, and I mean, Navi right now is playing a tournament, and that could be really good for them. It can also be really bad in terms of not having time to fix the issues, and we have a lot of data to analyze and everything. So it could be both good and bad. But I have my hopes high.
After a nice little break, and you guys don't play a LAN in a little bit, do you get like jitters again at all when you come back into a studio environment? People are screaming. Does that matter?
Yeah, I think that's like the most that it happens when you haven't played a tournament for a long time. Then you actually get a little bit of nervousness back. And when we just travel from tournament to tournament, that just fades away and you're not nervous at all, even when you're going into big games, for me at least. But this time around, maybe you need to just get into the game and have a great start would be nice.
Well, you guys are known for bad starts at Blast, but this time around you get best of threes, right? So is that a nice change?
I think it's going to be a change that's going to benefit us in obviously in a good way. And looking back at the previous Blast editions, where we've been having some struggles getting off to a good start, and when you play really bad at the best of one tournament, you just had a really tough time getting back. And the fact that you can go now and play best of threes is something that's a lot more appealing to us. So just looking very much forward to the new format and hope that we can continue where we left off.
So, this week we've got a lot of good Counter-Strike about to come out, but last week as well we had our first group of the tournament. Liquid kind of stuttered. FaZe looked really good. Did you guys catch that? Do you have any thoughts on those two teams?
Actually, we have been practicing a lot against FaZe, and they seem to do really good. And they did against us in practice as well. So, yeah, I'm happy to see that they didn't only win against us, but they also beat Liquid. I mean, FaZe is looking solid. They also won some tournaments last year. So, yeah, I'm happy to see them as a big contender now. I think we have a lot of great teams right now, and I think it's going to be an amazing 2020 to see who wins the most titles and stuff like that.
You got a similar feeling?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we've pretty much mentioned that when we play against teams in practice, you're either going to be like, oh, these guys are just playing really well in practice, there's no pressure, and they just seem to be doing whatever they want. And then when they go to tournaments, they either crumble and can't play the way they did in practice, or they actually perform really well. And I think that the later answer to that is that FaZe actually played pretty well in practice, but also played really great in the officials. So, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, again, last week, FaZe Liquid, they moved forward. If you guys had to make a prediction without the matches having started tomorrow just yet, other than you, of course, who's going to the Blast Spring Finals in Moscow?
Oh my God,
how many teams are you advancing?
that's tough to say.
Just two, from last group?
From your group?
2 of the 4 from this week.
Also, we
Vitality, Navi, Astralis, or Complexity.
won't have to mention one team.
I think us and Vitality.
I'm gonna go Astralis and
Vitality.
Navi, just to be saying something else.
Okay.
Well, it's good. Maybe you're scared of different teams and you have maybe a better chance versus those different teams. I have a question, just to wrap up here. It's just in general. I asked on Twitter about this and a few other players. If you look at CS just in a crude way, in terms of aim, how much would you say CS is about aim if you were to give it a percentage out of 100? Would you say it's like 30 to 40%, 70 to 80%? How important is aim?
Aim is pretty important. But aim is one thing, like when you stand still and just shoot at something, that is probably aim, but you have to take movement into consideration when you talk about aim as well, I think, because it's not two different things, because it kind of contributes each other, right? So, but I would say 70, 80%.
70,
yeah.
80%?
Yeah.
Entry fragger?
Well, obviously being the entry fragger requires you to hit headshots a lot faster than in other situations, I think. But at the same time, you also need to put into consideration that the effort that your team is putting in for you in terms of flashbangs and smokes and like cutting off like angles you need to clear out. And if you go like take a guy raw aim duel 1v1, it can be really random. But when you put into consideration all the other things, I think the aim probably is about 60, 65 probably.
60, 65. I think that's still in the upper end though. It's like a very, very strong numbers here. Maybe that's the secret, guys. Maybe that's the secret, more deathmatch. Well, thank you so much for the interview, and good luck with your week, your group this week. And back to you guys on the desk.
Okay, so I got to get on Spunj here, because the reaction that you had when Glaive was up there with 70%.
I'm no authority on aim because I didn't have any, but when you consider all of the things which you need to be able to do in Counter-Strike, right, to be a professional player, saying 70 to 80% of being a professional Counter-Strike player is aim. Do you remember that guy? I don't think we can say his name. He was a Swedish player. He was an aim star. He was a 1.6 player. He was scared of flying, so he never went to play any of the tournaments, right? But he was just great at aim, right? But he wasn't a good Counter-Strike player when he did play scrims and stuff because he wasn't good, first of all, with his utility usage. He wasn't very good at, playing off his teammates. You have to think about, you've got spacing. You've got all these different grenades that that now players don't just know, all right, you're going to know this for the B execute and this for the A execute. You need to know everything across the board on almost all sides of the map. These players now have encyclopedias of grenades, over 7 maps for a lot of them, in their brains. They have to worry about the spacing, they have to worry about all the strat names, they have to communicate. These are all factors. 70 to 80% of your game
Here's the
aim.
problem. I'll give the devil's advocate position here and try and speculate on what I think Glaive was talking about there. First of all, it's Astralis, so they actually themselves, if you know how people are when they master a skill, they probably assume everyone else should be able to know the other factors of the game. Like you're saying, spacing, working off your teammates, that's something that Astralis has everything of. Yeah. So to them, they actually naively probably think those things aren't as big a deal because they've mastered them.
Sure.
But I would say as well, whenever people do that debate, I feel as though they do some weird abstract concept where what they do is they make it like, which is the only thing that matters? It's like, right, well, it's aim then, isn't it? Because you got to shoot my head. It's like, no, what are the odds that someone would have like 99th percentile aim and then none of the other things? None of the things
wouldn't be a good player.
Yeah, it's very unlikely that you'd have only very extreme cases where someone had anything approaching that. Like maybe old school Woxic or something like. It'd be pretty hard to find anyone. So I agree with you. I would say max 50%, just because I think there's so much, like we're saying, that goes into the rest of the game. Just the problem is when you think of the game as just a series of 1v1s, yeah, the player with the better aim is going to win most of those.
Plus, if you consider a big factor of what he said there was, like if you even included movement as part of that, right? Movement into these days is jiggle peeking, is pre-aiming corners, is knowing that when you're going to step out, your crosshair is actually in the right position for where the enemy is going to be. It's not just mechanically standing in a circle and spinning around and shooting the headshots, right? You are teaching your brain where to aim when you're practicing on these certain maps. I don't know if people played YPrac.
You set the shot up.
Yeah. YPrac,
so you're prepping yourself for when there is a target there. That's not actually aim. That's muscle memory of
visualization,
of your
everything.
crosshair placement, right? And so there's lots of factors that go into that. Now, obviously, it could have been a longer form question, longer form debate for them, and maybe laid out a little bit differently, and might get a different answer. But I just thought when I heard that, I was like, what?
I would just say this: like, I know this is a sad problem that a lot of players have, which is when they're good in one area, they don't like it when you tell them they're not as good in another area. So they always say, "No, I'm good at that as well." It's like, all right, mate, whatever. So all I would say is this, mate: if you're a Glaive, mate, I'd love it if CS was 80% based on aim. Team Liquid would be whipping that ass every time you play them. If you think you're beating them because you're out aiming them, I actually don't know what you think you're doing in the game, because that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing amazing positioning,
Intuition.
reads, like people getting the right fights that they win, but definitely not winning all of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's why sometimes Team Liquid on the scoreboard's doing just as well, but the number of rounds is twice as many for Astralis. So it's just one of those, listen, it's just a throwaway question, isn't it? He didn't sit down and think about it. And it's Glaive. He's a bit of a weirdo. I always say the thing about him is that's how you know he's a genius in the game, because when you listen to him outside the game, you're like, who are you? The coach?
I love his like.
Get in the water.
I love.
He's
his,
he's a player, right? Fair enough.
His post-game interviews when he's like highly charged with emotion are great, right? Because the filter that he is gone, and you can hear the emotion in his voice when he talks. And he even loves playing the heel now, because when people want to accuse them of all this nonsense with the smokes and all this absolute rubbish, he comes, I'll play the heel to this. That's what I like about Glaive. There's not too many in-game leaders, especially on a team that's doing very, very well, that are going to come out and embrace that, right?
Well,
and
he's had the ups and downs throughout his career, hasn't he? He's actually, now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Glaive the guy who got banned? Or not banned, but dropped?
Yeah, he got kicked because he wanted his girlfriend to be the designated coach.
Exactly.
And the thing is, by the way, the part and people don't bother mentioning that story is someone else wanted theirs to be, because that's the kind of cluster F that the Danish scene was at the time. So it was a bad situation for everyone.
My point is that he's actually gone through the ups and downs of, he could have had it all taken away, and then he gets that redemption arc of Astralis, gets the chance to prove himself, and now we're capable of seeing what Glaive is capable of. But he's had the ups and downs, right? It hasn't been that smooth voice.
I also
whatsoever
cannot believe, this must be a simulation. This is surreal right now, right? First of all, I'm on a Blast set, but it's now the Blast Premier. It's not the Blast Plus. Secondly, I'm watching a video as Astralis legitimately reminisce on the Blastralis era of their career.
Best of ones.
And go ahead and criticise the format of using best of ones as maybe not being the best for getting the #1 team to the fight. Like, is this it? Is this the last, the fumes of a dream as I just fade off out of this reality? I actually just died this morning, didn't I? What is this? That kebab did me in, didn't it?
I haven't seen Anders around. There's been no Anders today, so maybe controlling the simulation from home.
He's off pulling those levers again.
But I think one of the first things they said to kick off that interview was about, having the time off and coming into playing Counter-Strike again, right? And we talk about, I use the term ring rust. We should probably come up with one that's Counter-Strike, a keyboard, I don't know, squeaky cute. No, that's a terrible one. Duncan's good at this stuff. But we need one to do with coming back into the server after a decent period of time, because a lot of the things that you took for granted, or at least maybe you get away with in practice, you're not going to be able to do in a stage environment, right? It's a lot more intense. Whether you want to practice under an intense environment or not, it's never going to be the same as when you're in an actual competitive match on a stage with a crowd.
Sure.
And that's going to ramp up depending on the grandeur of tournament, the stage of tournament that you're in. But all those little bits and pieces, like maybe you're a little bit, sloppy on your comms, or, maybe you're not taking all the fights as you would under that competitive environment, or you let the nerves get to you. I would say Astralis definitely not going to let the nerves get to them. They're a team who's, been through the paces more than anybody else in terms of playing in high pressure environments. But, there's always a factor. It's probably those first, 5 or 6 rounds where you're just get back into the run of things. But out of all the teams, Astralis are the one who I would say that would affect the absolute least, because the way that they seem to approach life and the game of Counter-Strike, they're ready for anything. Like if they were walking down the street and they got challenged, like it was like some Yu-Gi-Oh battle in the middle of the street to some Counter-Strike game, and they all had their keyboards handy, they could get out there and play and they could get it done. They don't need to the mental prep. It's a big part of their game. But these are the type of guys who I think are professionals. They could do it under most circumstances. So I don't see it being an issue for them, considering the group as well. They touched on the fact that Na'Vi, they have now a database that they can look at, and Na'Vi are only fixing things on the fly. So
jokes on them. Na'Vi doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
true.
Nothing to pick up from those.
Well, we've talked. Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about the first seed, but we do need to move on a little bit and start talking about some of the other teams in this group, and they do happen to be playing against the 12th seed as their first match tomorrow. So complexity, 12th seed in the tournament, tough one, tough break for them, really running.
I'll give you an angle. Here's an angle that you can look at in this match.
Well, I'm told actually
I've got VT to play.
Yeah, I'm told we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And we are here discussing the second group of the Blast Premier 2020, kicking it all off. But before we get into the discussion, we do actually have our boys, Scrawny and Launders, the Scronders, the Londy, just doing work and interviewing players. So we're going to throw directly to that right now so we can hear what Rush and I believe it was Config have to say going into the group.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm here joined by Complexity of God Config and Rush. It's a chilly day in the studio. We're here for week 2, but you guys have already been here for a week, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been playing the Open Qualifier for the minor, so we've been there for a little time and we're ready to play Blast.
How's that been going?
It's definitely haven't been going that well. It's been going pretty bad in my opinion. We have one more shot, so we'll get it this time.
Yeah, it's like after Blast, you'll have another chance to qualify to the minor?
Yeah, we have one more chance, and we lost the first 2, and then we kind of have to play here, so we can't play the third one, and we have to play the fourth one, so that's the last chance.
Will, we're in the group of death, okay? And you guys are the small fish in this group. Are you expecting good results? Do you have tempered expectations?
I mean, I think we're going to play pretty well. Like, we've played, like, a lot, not necessarily these teams, maybe, like, we've played Na'Vi and Vitality in scrims before, and we have beat them pretty, like, one-sided, and they beat us the same way.
Okay.
But, like, we haven't played a Shox that much, but I think that we've been doing a lot of homework, and I think that we're up to snuff right now. And I think that, like, playing these open qualifiers, we're kind of, like, they were expected to win those matches, so maybe there's a little undue pressure there.
Mm-hmm.
But with these matches, we're, like, the heavy underdog, so I think we're going to play a lot more looser and how we should play, like we had in practice, I think. So
you got the same confidence?
Of course, we've been practicing against the teams when we're in Europe, so I feel confident that we can definitely beat all of them.
Anything interesting to talk about with you guys being now a European team, or how's it been with European teammates?
I mean, it's interesting. I haven't had this before. I've had 2 European teammates before, Flusha and Keo, and obviously that was kind of like an NA team with Europeans in it, and we almost like actually transitioned into a full European team in Cloud9, but that never happened. Mm-hmm. But I am used to it, and they speak like pretty good English, so it's not that much of a difference, honestly. Like the only difference is maybe like Val or Poison has kind of like he's learning a lot of English right now, and he's still like a little behind, but he's getting better every day. Mm-hmm. But the Danish guys, they kind of like speak pretty fluent English, so it's not like much of a difference, honestly, than playing with NA players.
And playing with North American players, can you handle it, man? These guys are so toxic.
This guy is definitely the hardest one to play with. Owen and the Slatter is just Slatter,
Flattered.
Yeah, he's a machine, but we need to take care of him every day and wash his clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm a mess.
Like
I'm a mess,
grown-ass baby.
Yeah, totally. He's spot on.
Let's talk about the tiny elephant in the room. We got Obo, right? Okay, everybody here is a meathead on the team. Blame F, the biggest one's not even here right now. What's the deal with Obo? Is he coming to the gym with you guys?
I'm getting him in there a little bit. I'm trying my best. I had him do a leg day once, and he couldn't walk the next day. So I was like, maybe that was like a one and done for him. But I don't think he goes sometimes. Like I remember, like Blame said, like he was in the elevator going down from the practice room or coming out from the practice room at like 4 a.m. and he saw Owen in the elevator at 4 a.m. He's like, "What are you doing, Owen?" He's like, "I was at the gym." And like at 4 a.m. He's like, "Yeah, man." So I think he does his little sessions on his own. So it's kind of unique.
Yeah, are you rubbing off on him?
Of course, we have to get him to the gym sometimes. Little Owen, he has twig arm right now, and he will look like Blame one day.
He'll look like Blame one day. Yeah, he's gonna explode. I don't think his skin can stretch that much. One more question, guys, before we go. It's something interesting I just asked on Twitter. How much in general? Just to you don't have to think about it too much, but like, what percentage would you give to CS in terms of aim? How important is aim in CS if you had to give it a percentage out of 100? With everything else involved, like 50%, 30% of CS is aim?
I would say 75%, because with aim you probably get the longest, but if you like learn to play smarter with the time like you play, if you just started playing professionally, you probably get picked up because you're good at aiming. You don't get picked up because you're like really, really smart. So I definitely feel like 75%.
I'd say it depends on the role, really. Like I think like if you're like an entry fragger, you kind of need some sick game to like actually make those entries happen. And maybe if you're like more of a support player or like you're thinking more about teammates, you don't need it that much because you can win with your brain, So I think it's like pretty 50-50 split for me, and maybe even less for some roles and more for some roles. I think it's really like interchangeable. So.
Okay, well, thanks so much for the interview, guys. We'll go back to the desk and let us know what you guys think about that.
Right,
Solid interviews.
We'll
well thought
this,
out there.
We'll do this again. So same scenario, right? Config, if CS was mainly about aim, you'd probably be a major winner right now, mate. Like, you have some of the best aim of anyone to ever play Counter-Strike. Look at your career, though. Like, there's a reason why it's been up and down. There's a reason why you've been good in teams, and then the teams haven't been that great. You've never been considered the best player in the world, even though every player I know who's played with you says you have the best aim they've ever seen of any player in the Danish scene, etc. So I think it's just another example of, like, I think some people, what's interesting is Rush was a good example. example, because he actually started listing all different variables and putting context in. I think some of the people answer it are just picking a number and they're just going off one simple factor. You know, they're not really good.
Let's sit them down, put them in a room, and actually lay the question out for them with all these other variables and other factors, and we'll see what the answer is after that. But
what do you think, Launders? Yeah? Yay?
He doesn't have a mic on, so who cares?
Wait.
I mean, he didn't have a mic on in one of the interviews, but we started listening to it, so whatever.
He's going to do it probably again next week, so we'll see if he can ask the question differently. Maybe he can offer them up the variables, but there we go. I thought he was saving that for tomorrow. Look, apparently we can get manicures here, so if we want to get something that is great for everybody, let's get a masseuse, because I could use a shoulder massage.
Oh, man, that would be amazing right now.
Let's get that in for tomorrow.
We used to have that at DreamHack. Do you remember that?
No.
Were you there before that? No, you weren't there for the DreamHacks. Man, those are the glory days.
Got a
Martin masseuse.
like colonic irrigation. Just get the whole health.
Why not?
Yeah. Listen, just get nice and comfy. Just get clean. What can I tell you? Use coffee. Apparently, it's really good. It cleans you right out of it.
Use a few kg as well.
I've been curious about it, but it's not anything I've tried. So it's also probably on par with talking about the prac results. Now, I like that he brought it up because most people steer clear of the prac results, the same as colonic irrigations. Not most people aren't fans of talking about either.
Both necessary components of a healthy lifestyle, though.
Tell us more about your healthy lifestyle.
Most of the time, teams steer clear of prac results, right? Because at the end of the day, if you like with gods in practice and then you come to an event and you can't beat anybody, then your practice results don't matter at all. And it depends on also what you're trying to practice in practice. You know, some people are trying to win scrims. Some people are just trying to do a bunch of, it really depends on your angle for practice. So you can take that as a positive sign that at least they were winning some games against the teams in the group because that's going to give them that confidence going into the matchups. I think that they've also practiced a lot in a short amount of time, which is great, right? Because they've had to come here. They've been trying to qualify for those minors. They've been playing a lot of CS. Sounds like they've been allowed to practice with the big boys, which is great because if you don't necessarily have people wanting to scrim against you, then you're going to find yourself in a position having to play against the tier 2s, the tier 3 teams. So it's good that they've had that opportunity. And then the baseline of players, I think, is great. Poison, he was very good. Config, as you mentioned, at one point in time, very, very good as an individual.
I
think that's Blame F is a newer name for a lot of people, but the fact that he is so driven, I think that's great from an in-game leader perspective. And then you've got Obo and Rush, who previously won a major, right? So the names, when you look at them on their own, they stand up. They're names that definitely stand up. The question is, can they make it work? And from what I've watched so far, it's very formulaic. It looks like they've laid out the defaults, that they're set pieces from the defaults. If they get the territory, they can. But the Counter-Strike against Tier 1 teams is going to play differently than that, right? Yeah. You're not going to get cat control for free and be able to do 5-man executes every round against an Astralis.
Well,
right?
that's always been the case, hasn't it?
So but they said they feel more comfortable playing against that type of Counter-Strike, right? Because when you play against a Tier 2, Tier 3 team, like for example, they lost to a Polish team called Pact in the minor qualifier. When you're playing against a team like that, it can be different, right? They can either give you, they could be hyper aggressive or they can give you a lot of rope. It can be a different style.
That's a good point, though. It's a good question in terms of what are you actually practicing for? Are in your scrims, are you only practicing against the elite teams or the top, let's say, 15 teams?
Yeah.
And then you're going into play against the minors where teams are just going to be, they're treating it like DM almost.
Yeah.
It's tough break. That's a good point. That's a good question to bring up. As far as we still have a couple of the teams, you mentioned Mobo, one of them Poison. How do we think that they're going to fare here against some of the best?
Well, the good thing in their team as well is, aside from Rush, they've got such a plethora of players with potential or have already started to show skill or have been good in the past that I actually think that's probably going to be the most underrated aspect is the potential for fragging in this team. Like when I look at this group, listen, Astralis and Na'Vi in their own ways are going to be pretty indomitable, I think, for this team. But actually Vitality, that's a game I could see them having a chance in. They could frag with those guys. They could maybe get a map off them, make it kind of interesting. Depends what kind of Vitality turns up. Depends if ZywOo has a great game. And for me personally, while I'm certainly looking to see who's going to be legit from the Complexity squad, the guy we did the interview with, Config, is the person I need to see be really good. Because this guy was one of the best players in the world. And for all accounts that I know behind the scenes, it wasn't that his skill just degraded. It's that he just lost the plot as a person and his social elements went way out of whack. And then maybe that also contributed to, I'd heard times when he wasn't practicing as much and not thinking that you had to, etc. So he claims to be the new Config, as it were.
You send him away to like a military camp, right? And got that beaten out of him. So
exactly.
I guess we're going to see if it works.
And listen, this is a great group to do it in. Like if you play against all these teams, which are all considered much higher ranked than you, and you show very good individual performance, now there's something to get a bit hyped about if you're the Complexity guy.
I think so too, yeah. This experience will be invaluable.
I think they can be competitive against Na'Vi and Vitality and probably on their map choices. But will they is the question, right? Like, I can see this working eventually. I can see it all clicking and coming together. And Poison is somebody who we got to watch a bit of last year as an AWP player, and he was fantastic. You know, he's a very sharp individual. But like, this is the question. With the practice that they've done and the time that they've spent here in Europe, they need to now turn that into a tier 1 event against some of the biggest and best names in the world. That's no easy task. Like, if you were going to be putting money on it, you wouldn't be betting that they'd be winning those series. But there is a world where they're competitive in those games. Like what I saw out of Na'Vi today while they were playing Ice, there were some things that were good. There were some things that were really bad. And that's something that potentially, you know, Complexity could take control of if they have, you know, the game plan for the first 8 rounds of a half planned out and they can get away with it picture perfect like they want to.
Sure.
That's something that's possible. There's a world that we live in where that's possible and they can have competitive matches against the Na'Vis and Vitalities. But Astralis, if you're modeling the way you want to play off of Astralis, which is probably what all the teams who are building up will do until they can find their own identity, you're playing Astralis' game, right? So as their opening match, it's a really rough place to be.
Show us what you got. That's what it's going to have to be, isn't it? And then we'll get a good understanding of where they sit. But I think, like with what Duncan was saying, you're probably looking at 1-2 roster moves before we really see competitive CS out of them on the top level.
And a bit more experience at these kind of events, right? You know, that's another big thing. Obo, for those people who don't know, he's another one of these babyface killers.
He's 17 again, right?
Yeah, but he doesn't get the same treatment as what a Brolin gets, who gets to play in European pugs, right? Brolin gets to play against the best of the best. Obo has had to play against, you know, no disrespect to North America, they don't have as many good players in the world as what Europe does. That's just the fact of the matter.
But that's just how it's always been.
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot more mistakes that get made over there. And still, for him to be a good player like we've seen out of him, he's had glimpses. You know, for him to already be at the level he's at, that's great. But the only way he's going to get better is with these events under his belt. And this is the first real step for him, right? Because his team before, let's be honest, you know, you had some weaker links in the old Complexity before they've made this move. He's now playing in a team which we're not going to say is a legitimate contender to be the best team in the world, but is a legitimate team who could compete within the realms of the top 20.
It's great for him to grow in as well.
Yeah, so I think they've really set him a good environment.
I'm definitely not buying that whole angle they were trying to sell in that interview there, though, that like he's got to get in the gym and start working out. First of all, how's it working for the rest of you? Like, shut up. Secondly, I've followed a lot of esports games, and I know the Astralises of the world want to sell this image that, like, you know, healthy body in a healthy mind, all this, this is like the secret to the game is you got to, you know, maximize everything in every area. No, like one thing I love about video games is you could be the guy who's worked out, you jacked everything, you're good at the game, and then you go and play the game, and the guy who murks you, you look over behind the cat, it's Flusher. Or it's Old Guardian. And the old one, obviously, he's garbage now. In you know, the old school guy.
You mean the Guardian who hit shots?
Cold Zero back in the day. These guys were, listen, they were never going to be on GQ magazine covers, but they were straight fire players. That's so overrated, that angle of the game. I think personally the reason to do that is just stuff like psychological reasons. Feel like you've got consistency in your life, you've got discipline in your life, you can take care of this thing that you need to. I don't think I think it's yet to be proven that like physical fitness actually makes you better at the game.
There's going to be stamina, questions of stamina in the long term. I'm sure
I'd say more mental strength, right? Because what you do in the gym in the same way if you're working on parts of your body, like for me in the transformation I went for, that helped me get over like my individual things like confidence, anxiety, depression, less so about what I see do physically in a game, for example. Like my Counter-Strike did not improve from me losing weight and getting stronger, but it definitely helped with all that mental side of things and being prepared for things and also just having a good kind of routine in that sense.
There was even an angle, I forget who said it, it was on one of my League of Legends podcasts, that I thought was straight fire, where someone said an angle where actually it's the other way around. If you see the guy who, listen, isn't looking in the best shape, and he seems like he probably has a very poor diet, and it seems like all he does is sit on his computer and play video games, that guy's going to have to be amazing, because what else has he got in his life? That's the only thing. That's the Matrix, and he has to go into that to start bending all the false physics. When he comes out, he's just eating gruel, in this case, Cheetos. Like, the other guys, they've all got girlfriends, they're in the club, they've got like a new line and stuff.
We're not going for the girlfriend thing.
Sorry, Team Liquid was last week, my bad.
No. We're not going for the girlfriend things, right? Because, you know, girls and weed, right? That's the only things that'll ruin your CS.
Listen, Team Liquid was last week.
And World of Warcraft.
I don't know if they play World of Warcraft.
Definitely well.
Those are the big three, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of like physical fitness, I think I'll throw it in there where it's like longevity across a long day. You got like 2 best of 3s you got to play, or, you know, long series, right? I do think that if you are spending more time at the gym in terms of working on cardio or working on how to build endurance out throughout the day, it's going to keep you sharper. It's going to keep you sharper for a longer period of time than if you happen to be one of the more unhealthy blood sugar spiking all over the place kind of players, right? I mean, there's a good reason why teams, even going back into 2013, 2014, where teams were already starting to eliminate sugar from their diet going into tournaments, right? Like no Coke, no Coca-Cola, no Red Bulls, no none of that. You drink like coffee, black coffee or tea, water, right? Nothing to mess with your blood sugar because you could have like big spikes during a game, but then you just go off a cliff when you need to be sharp. And so it is an element, I think, that does bear out at least some value.
Sure, I think, doesn't Device do things in the gym to do like fast reflexes?
Yeah, well, I've spent a bit of time with me. So his routine is not like a normal routine. It's what has been defined specifically for what he should, what they believe is needed from
reflexes.
Them working with it.
I think like we can make that like argument, and I think that probably being healthy is better for you in life than not being healthy, right? I think that is a statement right there.
Depends what your goal is.
Exactly. Maybe you want to die of early age of obesity.
My body, my choice, Chad.
No, that's not stuff.
Oh, man.
It's the woke culture. We're going to get into that.
Whatever.
Diabetes.
We kept it nice and light.
There. You got the NHS. You're all right. All right, what are we doing?
Ooh, I was just going to say that, like, Flusher, for example, back when he was at his absolute peak as an individual, was off of, big brain plays, which had nothing to do with, anything else other than the way that his brain functions.
Exactly. His body was just a vehicle for his big brain.
There you go. So, and it worked for him. And he's still playing good Counter-Strike now. So
he's all right.
But what all good players need?
Vitamin C.
A break. And we are going to take one right now. So when we
Vitamin C was a good guess.
When we come back,
good guess.
We will be getting into a third
TLC.
team, Navi.
Respect.
Hi.
There we go.
Hello.
We're back.
The Gram was calling.
What's your handle?
ROF Semmler.
There you go. Follow him.
Boom. Done. Chad, your game is actually really good, dude. I'm actually taking notes.
I don't know who I
your...
stole stuff from.
You're still pretending Room on Fire is a thing?
No, I'm just too lazy to change the name right now.
Fair enough. That kind of a metaphor for Room on Fire and why it all went downhill. Really.
I think Jason changed his Twitter handle, but Little Murmur wasn't available, so unfortunately he's got whatever rubbish he has at the moment.
He just had to go back to that whack thing of like
Moses,
GG. Like, oh, remember that one clip when I got hot mic GG, guys?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know why.
Why not let Moses
He should have just been like Moses Mofo.
Yeah. He got
or how about just stop being disrespectful to the Bible and pick a different name? Or lead your people. How about lead your people out into the promised land?
Teams.
Lead them to a major.
North American teams.
Coward.
You're
just staying in Egypt as a prince. Like, oh, I love this, get all the money, all the Skrilla from being a caster. With Pharaoh Anders.
Pharaoh Anders.
with the one leaf just whiffed.
Getting fanned and fed grapes.
Bring me Skybox. I will construct the Skybox to the heavens in my honor. There we go. Right, anyway, we've got all out of the way.
Let's get on to Navi.
Yeah, let's get back in.
They're the next ones. And Chad, you know where I'm going with this.
Well, I was just going to say, I had a question that came in from Twitter. His name is Bulba Shikaka. Is his name.
That sounds fake, all right.
And he said...
At least it's not what blood smoking Anus Destroyer. What the fuck is your deal?
Yeah, your patrons are crazy.
What do you expect?
he says, Chad, he says this during any of his videos about laughing, just completely stone-faced. Duncan's just reading out these mad names.
Patrons.
Yeah, I guess.
The patrons are the best.
Well, if they're paying, but
that's the OG StarCraft 2 ones. You remember like Poofies 420 and everything for the GSL?
Anyway, this question, right? Yeah, and we can go a lot of ways with this. But do you think Simple and ZywOo can be the Ronaldo and Messi from the CS world? Now, for those people who don't know, those are football players. Now, I think that comparison, you could pick one of those two names to be the Messi, the natural ability. I don't really know a lot about football, so this is probably not going to go very well. But the other one, the hard worker, right? The one who does everything by the book is the Ronaldo, right? Isn't that the case? He's a super athlete.
Ronaldo?
Yeah, he did all the he did all the work on like his body and get himself into peak performance.
Yes,
are we talking about the Portuguese Ronaldo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, not Brazilian.
Here's the thing. I think
the tank.
The analogy here,
That's right, you see.
the analogy here for what they're trying to argue, I think, is that basically over the last I'm going to say 10 years at this point in time, Ronaldo and Messi basically each were one was I win the best player of the year, then the other one wins the best player of the year 2 years later, and then and they've sort of shared it across the era. So the idea is, up until last year, you would have thought it'll just be Simple will be the best player for the next 5 years, and then it'll be who wins the tournaments, like Device or maybe Elise, if team. That's the only way someone will challenge him. So the idea is now ZywOo can actually legit challenge Simple on his terms if I'm just the best player. So that's kind of the premise I'd like to have, because if we could have as many years where these two guys are backwards and forwards like that, and the idea is that. Yeah, as a team, you compete to beat the other team, but you also want to have the other guy. You want the status of being called the best player. I said on the broadcast, I know from talking to Simple, he never, no matter what he says in interviews, he never actually thought ZywOo was better than him. He just thought, he has a different guy on the team set up or somewhere, and if you just, I'm doing something different now. He'd have some angle on it. He still thinks he's the best.
Did he take the Olaf angle? Back in the day when you would ask Olaf, are you the best player in the world? No. Is there anyone better than you? No. Right? Is it that kind of angle where he's not coming straight out and saying
Simple knows he's the best player. You have to understand that. You have to understand that. I've even I've sometimes got worried where sometimes I've seen him do a tweet, especially back in the day before Navi was winning. He'd sometimes do a tweet I'm going to have to really level up my game now, guys. When he dropped some insane rate. And I would just go to him in the after party and just be like, that is all nonsense, right? You do know you're the best player. And he'd be like, right, that's fine. I said, you play the political game, mate. I just needed to know what was real.
Your mindset's okay. You're feeling good.
Right, there we go. Thank you.
If that angle, I like that angle, the fact of them challenging each other. I was going to say, if in terms of the way that they approach the game, if one was a natural talent, then you could say either ZywOo or Simple, and then the guy that works super hard with the Ronaldo would be the Device, right?
Yeah.
Does Device even rank in the top 3 right now? He is top 3, but is he in the running for top position right now, or is he just
What I like about the way we've changed up the way we view the best players is actually the way I always thought it should be. Whereas because it's an individual award, it should just be based on your individual performance. You can't take into account the team context because we already give the teams an award. It's called the trophy when you win the tournament.
And the prize money.
That's the point. That's why the angle he said before is the one that I come up with for Device now. Is if I'm Device, you can have all the #1 trophies. I'll just take every major that there ever is, and at that point in time, who cares about the discussion? I just get to say that. So I would just say it's more along the lines of where are we going with this one? Where are we going with that?
Sorry,
whether
just where
Device can be
is in the running or
the
not.
problem
yeah.
Device has basically is when these guys are in their godlike form, he's an extremely good player. In a world where they didn't exist, he might be the best player ever. But the problem is, he isn't like some alien being that came down from the heavens and now plays kind of like they are. They're just. It's unfair almost that they're allowed to play. So when there's two of them going, it's just unreasonable to think like individually he's going to better
But he's
them.
also playing in a system, right? In Device's
It wouldn't
case,
matter.
where
I've seen
Simple was not used correctly towards the end last 6 months of the year.
Yeah, but the difference is, I also do not think after watching his whole career, Device could do the things that Simple was doing.
Okay.
I don't care what team you put him on and what's not. And also, I'll say this as well. I think it's even slightly unfair because there were worse versions of Astralis where Device was a little bit of a better player, like more consistent carry. But I would also say the thing that people don't give enough credit to ZywOo and Simple of is their team's almost never the best, and they're still the best player.
Yeah.
The difference is Device is in the best team. Like if you put him in a bad team, I don't think you'd even have a chance.
So that's because the pieces to me on Astralis, right? All the team players do have the good individual performance. Where you look at like for ZywOo as an example, he's literally just carrying the rest of them.
Sure.
So he is going to look insanely good every single time, and that was the same for 2018 for Simple.
It's like plus 1600 good though. Like,
Yeah. But
Holy, yeah.
mind blowing. Mind blowing.
There's a million different ways that you could like split it and the angles that you could look at with all this. I just think, we've got three pretty bloody good Counter-Strike players. But I'm with Duncan in the sense of the other two are to aliens. I feel like I know where you're going with the direction of that, though.
Yes, because it's going to come on to our hope that got destroyed there,
Yes.
Chad, right? So me and you sat here when we saw this new Na'Vi. And
Got excited.
We got excited because like Zeus is gone. It's like Zeus is a legend.
New
but
project.
Time's gone, right? And then we get rid of the utterly useless coach in Kane. He's moved to the side, and we bring in the mastermind, the peace puzzle here, Blade. Me and Chad were so excited. Then we saw him at Pro League, and it was like, okay, a little rough start. We'll give him a bit of edge. Wasn't too bad.
Okay.
But this event just now has not given me the hope I was hoping for. The Na'Vi Nation dream is
But they
not
haven't
quite alive just yet.
Played much yet. Or not even
I know, 'cause obviously
scrimmed
with
much
Perfecto
yet
in as
because
well.
they had to change the roster.
And they
Do we
couldn't get
give them
players
time?
Of course.
Well,
I think we have to.
you have to give them time. But Chad, the question I want to ask you is, do you still have that faith that these players can work the 5 they have now?
I think when you have Simple and Electronic on the team, right, that you should have a top 3 Counter-Strike team in the world, right? Unless you're going to sandbag and you're going to have 3 absolutely woeful players, which they don't have, right? I think Flamey as an individual has things that he's good at. He also has some things which he's pretty average at. But right now, in the Counter-Strike I watched them play over this last week, they were moving things around. Blade even said that in an interview, right? Perfecto, he wasn't their first choice.
No,
right?
definitely not.
Guardian wasn't even their first choice. But when we're looking at the names that they've been able to get, the 5th position is where they need to hope that they've struck gold with Perfecto. Because we don't know enough just yet. When he was on Simon Gaming, they had him as a CT side bomb site anchor, and he was good at getting multi-kills. But now you're playing against tier 1 Counter-Strike teams, and you're having to play with guys who have been doing it for a long period of time. So I think that Boomich has a long way to go as an in-game leader, but he's lucky he has Blade behind him, right? So you can say, but for me, it's Perfecto and Flamey. What kind of level can they have?
And that's actually a question. All right, we do have a video.
Okay.
But before we get into that video, I really wanted to actually check because I thought that I'd read in the HLTV interview with Blade that Flamey was calling right now for Na'Vi. Is that just crazy to me, or did I misread that? Has anybody else heard this, or am I just imagining this situation where I saw that Flamey was reading?
I only read headlines, so I probably missed it.
Okay, well, I'll go and find the interview. Or somebody can tweet at it or whatever. Let's take a look at the highlight because Na'Vi weren't able to make it here to the studio. So let's take a look at the highlights. Oh, in fact, we can just talk over it. So we can keep going. We can keep going.
Never mind. So, okay, if that is the case and Flamey's calling, then what's going on? Flamey's not the type of guy as a leader of a team.
Well, no, like he's quiet as hell. And remember, he was the one that threw Kane under the bus with the whole thing that we're not even using him. We're just WhatsApping Blade in the meantime.
Yeah, but I don't know if he meant to throw Kane under the bus there.
No, I just exploited him while I had a few moments.
The problem is, I personally don't think it's at all about Perfecto. Like, the whole thing of Guardian was he was legitimately a really bad player when he was in the team. Like, it was actually appalling. And he got the most expensive gun bought for him all the time and dropped away from the best player in the world or potential best player in the world. That angle was the only reason the 5th position mattered. All Perfecto has to do is not be Guardian. If he just plays anywhere vaguely decent, that's fine. Because fragging-wise, the team's amazing. They've got a nice little squad of players. My problem is, after watching them play a bunch of tournaments with Boomich as the in-game leader, I was so underwhelmed. It was unbelievable because they would either have games where the fragging took over and they looked sick, or they would have the games where it was a bit disconnected, or even better, I saw them play games against the likes of EG or Mouse Sports, teams that have in-game leaders who are famously good at switching up in the mid-round, and they had nothing. They had no, like, it's like the guy, he made a chess move and they had no counter at all.
Well, if you're Boomich, what's your answer, though?
Well,
because, I mean, you're playing with Electronic and Simple, who are, and Flamey as well, who's never been easy, right, to play with and to get to perform. But you're also dealing with Simple, who, granted, is he is the superstar of the team. So you're Boomich. You're supposed to come in. You're supposed to tell them what to do. How do you have the authority?
I think
coming
Blade,
in as the in-game leader at that point. Is this where Blade comes in?
Well, no, it's not even just Blade, right? Because remember when Blade was doing Gambit, he was looking after them. He literally micromanages the pieces one by one, goes through everything and makes sure it's super structured.
Sure,
So that
but does that work with Simple?
But that mid-round side also needs to come in more than from Boomich, and if he can't deliver that, then they're really struggling because you literally just follow in a textbook. And at that point, Blade can't even help out, right? Because he's only going to have that minimal time. So, yes, he can do all the prep and all the amazing stuff at the beginning, but you still need an in-game leader that can actually dive a bit deeper and add something in that middle ground. And if Boomich isn't doing that, well, there we go.
I want to throw, I think that it would be kind of cool if there were multiple different, there was for a period of time where there was multiple different ways to approach the game of Counter-Strike, right? When Zeus was calling and Na'Vi were just doing 4 spies, right? Zeus would call a 4 spy and drop a deagle to Simple and Electronic. They'd have head armor and the other guys would buy whatever they could. And Simple, I think there was one tournament, I was keeping track of it. He would drop them deagles. It's difficult for the commentators to make mention of that because they don't see the spawn. We're too busy on a crowd shot. We're doing all that other stuff. But I went back and I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, Zeus is facilitating these kills. He is aware of who he has, what his tools in the shed are, right? When you have 2 tools like that, and if you could use them in the way Zeus was doing back then, there's no reason that they couldn't flip the script and try and do that with them here because they were hyper competitive with that kind of gameplay. But it's obvious they're going the long play here. They don't want to just win one tournament and then drop off because that style of play is contingent on Simple and Electronic showing up, which, most days you can. If we had a 7-day week, the 6 days they'd show up, and probably on that 7th they'd be there for half the day,
and then they'd rest.
Yeah,
like the Lord did,
as you want from Simple, right? But here's the thing for me with the Na'Vi team going forward. They just changed a player. And they just changed roles. So Simple went from being the primary AWPer, Guardian came. Okay, Guardian goes back to primary AWPer, Simple goes to the flex player who can do whatever he wants, which is how I think he should be used. And obviously how Blade thought he should be used when they picked up Guardian. And now it's who do we get? Well, James probably not going to want to go from VP, right? Apparently nobody wanted to go from 4s, so there's Xe Power gone. So when you're looking down the names, is it easier just to put Simple, who is already a fantastic AWPer, just in that primary AWP role, and maybe not build your whole team around AWP structure, right? So now we're going, okay, well, Simple, he's going to go back to that role. We bring Perfecto in. We have to change sites around in the middle of the games. We haven't had enough time. I'm going to say right now, this Na'Vi team is just very raw. They need, this 5 right now definitely needs more time. And I don't think we're going to see even a glimpse of what they can offer this week.
Blade mentions it in the interview as well, and this is at the beginning of it, where he's saying, yes, there's not enough time. They can't do what Astralis did when they changed their roster and take a month to just boot camp and figure things out.
Sure.
They have to hit the ground running right here, and he's saying they have to work so hard that he's willing to risk burning out the players.
I did read
because,
that.
yeah, you read that part, right? Where they don't even have the time necessarily to play it safe and take their time building it up. They have to go pedal to the metal.
Yep.
Do you think that's going to hurt them, though? I think that could hurt them even worse than all of the work that they have to do now, because if players start burning out on top of everything else you're trying to do, is that a fear or not?
Simple loves that, though. He literally plays FPL every moment he's home.
Yeah, that's Simple, though. I mean, it's we got Flamey and Boomich on there,
Flamey's
too.
the only one I'm worried about with the burnout, because he's a very emotional person, right? From all the things that you hear about him, all these silly decisions that he makes in his real life. I think that he's probably the most in flux. In terms of emotion. I say the rest of them, Electronic, the thing that might ride on him, he's a kid with a kid, right? What's Electronic in his early 20s, and he has a kid. Yeah. So maybe him missing his kid could actually play into that if they are just going to be on the road all the time. But they're kind of lucky with these 2 tournaments, going into making the grand final of ICE and getting a lot of best of 3s, a lot of maps to be able to play. That's a good warm in for this tournament. Now you come in here, and even if you come second last or last, you still get to play in the showdown.
You're still going on to the show.
So
there's still money there.
Perfect tournament to experiment.
It's great for them. It's great for them in that situation. In terms of the burnout, I think it's great that Blade's going, well, we're going to do this to try and be the best team in the world. I think that's how they should be approaching it, because I think Simple's window with this team is closing, right, to win majors, right? It has to be close. He can be good, but how long can he be this
Simple could go anywhere. That's the crazy thing. Hey, North American teams, you need somebody who can actually play with you? I mean, just take Simple at this point.
Cole.
I mean, speaking of a juggernaut,
you have to understand, without going too deep into this, Semmler, the second Simple leaves Na'Vi, mass redundancies for a lot of people working within that org. So put it together.
They're keeping him for.
I'm just saying. I think he's going to be in where. Basically, you may as well just tattoo that Na'Vi jersey on his body at this point in time. Just forget you can give him the new one.
He'll probably stay there for as long as what Zeus just did.
Chad, though, you said about Simple being flex player rather than having him on primary AWP. You should watch when he does his FPL games. He just always main AWP, and he's always just been waiting for that. So
sure.
Do you think it's more down to him, or do you think it's more down to what Blade wants?
An AWPer in a system is a restricted role, right? If you're a device, you're not getting the opportunity to go and do whatever you want in an Astralis system. In a mouse sports system...
Yeah, about to say, Woxer gets it perfect.
Yeah, but if he's not hitting his shots, they have the strategies to fall back on, right? You're going to have to do the same thing in Na'Vi, right? Whereas the reason I like simple... what are the best simple highlights? There are always these crazy moments that you would never expect to happen.
Exactly.
That's because he's finding himself in a situation that a system normally would not allow, right? So when you think about this as an individual, the reason I don't want him to be restricted by, okay, well, we've taken this map territory, and the actual smart thing to do, Simple, is for you to sit long on overpass with the AWP, making sure nobody repicks long. I want Simple to be in my entry pack with Electronic. I want it to be those two going in and mauling a bomb site. I can't think of a scarier duo of names in Counter-Strike than those two in a team. Like, Electronic, just now in one of their games that I was watching, it was Dust 2. They lost the game 16-14. He still managed, I think it was 117 ADR over a 30-round game. I was watching him entry frag. The guy was a monster. So you put him and Simple together, playing off of each other as two guys who understand the game as well as what those... That's really scary. Having Simple in a position, okay, maybe he can come through and try and clutch with the op.
Resurgence.
There we go.
Hey, they're here.
Oh, we're talking about them. They just roll on by.
There they are.
We should maybe should be a bit more somber.
They're also not on camera and don't have mics. So again, they don't matter. They don't exist as far as we're concerned. Believe it or not, guys, we're actually playing to an audience. We're not actually playing.
I didn't know anyone's at home.
Whatever.
There might not be anyone watching.
There's probably some.
This could be the Truman Show.
The thing is, though, I'm with you, though, Chad. Like, actually, here's the problem. In the short term, especially because of the window of how long Electronic and Simple have been good, you want them to have the success now. You want them to just win right now and see if it's possible. But actually, the idea of trying to play fundamental Counter-Strike and build up a real structure in the team and players that can last, I actually think if you can get anywhere close to that, that is obviously the better approach. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of other people in the scene who are pro players. It reminds me of before Astralis got good. Every other top team had a million excuses as to why they weren't even that good. Like, well, they're all just cowards. That's why they play tactically. If they were really like men, they'd go for these peaks and stuff, and they'd come and be aggressive and stuff. As soon as they started winning, they all had to shut up, and they all had to do all those liar interviews where they all say, they are the best, and I really respect them for winning. And they all change their tune. So there's a lot of people out there in the scene who are pro players who think that Simple Electronic, they just get to do whatever they want, and they're just like, they're actually in some ways baiting when they get all those kills. Like, the last thing those guys ever want in their lives is a real structure in a Na'Vi around Simple Electronic that actually has some tactical depth to it and can then make use of those guys at the peak level, because a lot of those teams are going to get run over if that ever happens. I don't know if this is the team to do it, but it's the prospect that you would dream of.
Do you think Blade has the in-game leading, or the in-game leading, the coaching chops to make that happen?
The problem is, in some ways, he's not that dissimilar to Zeus in that he has a strength, in that he has his own entire paradigm of what he thinks Counter-Strike is, how it should be played, what all the roles are, how specific players should play. So, because this is the bonus that Zeus had. You're never going to be bad because someone like that knows his own system inside and out. He basically made his system. But the downside is they're not going to just switch tomorrow to a new vision of Counter. Like, they're not going to ever switch it up and go, let's play how they did a few years back where it was kind of scrimmy and everyone was just playing off each other. Like, they're never going to do that. So they were stuck within their own little universe. So if he can get all the pieces to fit in his plan, yeah, great. If not, then there's a reason why a lot of people didn't want to play in Flipside, and it wasn't just the low salary. They thought he was a pretty rigid in-game leader.
Well, he always felt like an existence to me in terms of you had him like very similar styles and very regimented CS, the number system for describing the map, and so you could just swap it all up. I mean, guys, in case you are right, we do have an audience who are tuning in, and if you guys want to chime in, have any questions, etc., use the hashtag Backstage, tweet at any of us or the Blast account, and we'll obviously get it going.
Blast Backstage, not just hashtag Backstage.
Yeah, Blast Backstage. You're right. Thank you, Jay. Well, all right, there we go. Clearly, we need a quick break. And when we come back, we will be getting into not only some Na'Vi discussion, because I think we can talk about them all day.
Oh, yes.
But we also have a Vitality to get to here, the last team that we will be discussing for Group 2 here at Blast Premier. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back, guys. We got one more team to talk about throughout the second week here. We're going to be looking at Vitality, but let's get straight into an interview with them because then we can get into more detail.
Thank you so much, guys. We are now joined in this chilly little studio with two of our friends from Vitality. We've got Dan Madagascar and Alex McChicken. How you doing, guys?
Great, thanks you.
Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, we're there.
Yeah. Nice, man. How are you feeling about this group? It's the group of death. It's the one with Astralis. I mean, at least you've got complexity. You're going to pick on complexity?
I would never say that. We don't know what to expect from them, so no, never gonna say that.
Yeah. I think complexity are going to surprise at least one team this week, so we'll see.
Just hopefully it's not you guys, yeah? Do you guys have any experience playing versus them?
Well, a little bit before December in practice, but that's it. So we don't know much about them.
Speaking of surprises as well, I mean, you guys must have been watching last week. What are your thoughts of FaZe so far this year?
I mean, they played 3 games and they smashed everyone. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll play well like that all season. Be another good team to play against in tournaments, but we'll have to see.
Well, it's always the same with FaZe, I guess. When they on point individually, it's pretty tough to play against, and that's what happened last week, I guess. So yeah, they've been on point. I don't know if they've been on point tactically, but individually at least they were like super strong.
We've been listening into team comms and we heard Nico's calling apparently has been very good, and we're touching on FaZe. Obviously, this is a lot about you, so let's turn it over to your guys' calling and stuff. Have you boot camped in between last year and this year?
Yes, to prepare the year, we started by a 10 days bootcamp instantly to just come back to with a fresh mind and just prepare the year on the best way as we finished the last year pretty well. So yeah, we just bootcamped to just coming back on the basics and just play as good as possible to prepare for 2020 events. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you say?
Anything stopping ZywOo from being best player of 2020 as well?
Don't think so. I think he's the best player that's ever played the game, and I think it would just be the same. And
yeah. I agree with Alex, obviously, and I'm going to explain why. But the guy is in the system. He can't do whatever he wants, even if he has that freedom, but limited freedom, and he's still really good. To be honest, like he does frag so much. He just so good with the AK, so good with the AWP. He can do whatever. Sometimes even entry fragging. Something we didn't see from other really bigger stars. So yeah, he does everything. So if he stays at this level, I can't see anyone being better than him.
To draw another comparison to FaZe, I think like Brokey was a big standout player last weekend, and one of the things that we like to say about him is he's very cool, he's very collected, like he's calm in the server all the time. Would you say that as well about ZywOo? Do you think he has that in his gameplay?
First off, I want to start by stating that I told them that Brookie should have been AWPing straight away in FaZe.
Oh, that was your idea?
Oh yeah, that's what I said when he was in the team. I was thinking like he's going to be AWPing.
Because he played once against him in FPL and he killed him once with the AWP.
He's impossible to kill.
No. I said that Brookie should be AWPing, and now he is, and now they look amazing, so thank you for finally listening.
So you get like, what do you get, 10%, 20% of prize winnings?
But yeah, I think I think he's just, everything's natural for him. He's just like really calm, really just like, he just makes decisions really quickly and doesn't really think about it. I don't think it's just that he naturally gets the right answer every time. So
you guys are a French team, but you've got an Englishman here. So does that bring you an advantage? You're going to be in a London studio. When's the last time you walked into an English crowd?
Yeah, I think the last time was ECS where we won. So right. that was great.
But coincidence?
Yeah, having a British is not easy every day, to be honest. Their sarcasm and all the thing is not easy to handle.
They might leave the continent at any time, right?
Yeah, it's been a year. I know the guy for a few years, and I've been playing with him for a year. So, yeah, you're just learning to live with those people, and then it's getting better.
Oh my God! Yeah. Do you feel attacked right now?
It's a bit racist. I mean, the studio's full of English people, so I don't think you're getting out of here alive.
Don't worry. I think this one's coming home for you guys. One final question we've been asking everyone today. How much of CS, you're an entry fragger, okay? So how much CS, how much is aim in CS for you? If you gave it a percentage out of 100, how much of CS would you say is aim?
Like from an individual standpoint?
Give me
or
30
like
to
for a team?
40%.
For
Just
a-
for at CS as a game, how much do you think about it when it comes to you as a player on your team?
I would say 30, 40.
Yeah, it'd be
Not-
like 40. Yeah, 40%. Because you don't like. I think Flusher said it recently. You don't need to be like really good at skill-wise if you can outmaneuver people. So yeah, it just depends what role you're playing and stuff.
I agree. But when you're a tree fragger, better have good aim or it's gonna be tough for you.
Yeah.
I can
That's
agree with
tough. Life of entry fragger. It's a lot of deaths.
Rough one.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the interview, guys, and we'll shoot it back to the desk.
Happy Chad.
You see it here. Chad is happy. Chad is pleased.
We got a good answer. Also, on the Apex entry fragger thing, I had him on the podcast on Monday night, and we had him for an hour, and I asked him about that. I said, now, in modern-day Counter-Strike, do you still think that people can do that ride or die like you used to back in the day? And he said, no, I think it changed a lot, and, he's having to do a bit more of everything. So one of the other questions was, in terms of being better than you were last year, what do you guys have to do? Obviously, the other four of them have to frag more, but he was saying that their individual level is the thing that has to lift across the board, obviously not ZywOo, and in practice, it's been going well. They've taken more focus on that. So I'm going to be interested to see how that all kind of pans out, if individuals are getting more out of them, because if you look at this team player for player, I can put them in roles. I can say Apex, yes, he's an entry fragger.
Yeah.
RPK, he's a bomb site anchor. You've got Alex, who's going to do the middleman work, gritty between everybody. ZywOo is the main star. Shox is the lurker and clutcher. I can put them all in roles, but I don't know how they're going to operate as a team who everybody kind of has to do a bit more of everything, right? Like that's what I'm really curious to see with Vitality coming in this week. How much can they milk out of their individuals? Because a lot of these names, Alex and ZywOo are the only two new names. The other three, they've been around for the longest of times. They're all Source players. They're all going back, they're not old guys. Shox is getting up there now. I think he's 27, something along those lines. But realistically, they've been doing this for a very long time. And to get them at their peak, I feel like we're probably never going to see peak Shox again.
No, he looks washed at the moment, mate. And even worse mentality-wise in interviews, the answers he gives don't really give you the hope that he's going to return or that he even thinks of himself as that type of a player again. Like, one thing he's done in all the interviews I've seen is he basically just gives it up. Like, yeah, ZywOo's the best player. I'm not like that anymore. It's like, you kind of want to hear, like, no, I can become great again and maybe I can teach him a thing or two and I could play a different role. You want to make it like the hype of when he joined this team is most people hoped he was going to become a big fragger.
Clutch, man.
That has not been the case at all. Now we just want him to be a competent player. Because one thing I think is actually whack about Vitality is they now need to be treated the same way Na'Vi was for that last year with Zeus, where it's not good enough to be a good team and be top 5 and sometimes win a tournament because you have the best player in the world. When you have the best player in the world, if the team is not the best team or a top 2 or 3 team, someone else in that team is not doing their job well enough. Because what they always say is this, right? Obviously, they can't argue that they frag anywhere close to as well. As you said, Semmler, if you look at the differential, it's ridiculous. Like, it's the most skewed of any top team in the world right now.
Hold that one please bring it up. I think it's
he'll
like
get the number.
plus 1,600, something like that.
So then the argument becomes, which there is some rationale to, but if you look at the other players, as Chad said, with all those roles, they have experience, they kind of do their jobs. That's it, though. They just do their jobs. Like, just being competent at your job isn't good enough when you've got the best player in the world and the backing to be the best team in the world. So at that point in time, some of you can get away with being, well, I just do my job. You can't have 4 people who say that in a team. Someone's got to be one that, like, Alex has to be the best in-game leader in the world, or Shox has to become a world-class lurker again, or Alex has to be a fantastic secondary fragger that he sometimes can be. It seems like it's once in a blue moon. So at the moment, my problem is, I don't know why the rest of them think they can just get away with mediocrity while one guy is like Picasso out here.
What piece would you say needs to change first, though, for them to take it to the level you want to see them at?
Like a member change or a player step up?
Or even a player step up or a member change?
Right now, I could go a lot of ways with that team. Like, the Shox experiment, I think's failed. I could easily take that one out. I could easily... Here's the thing. I could kick RPK because I think all he does is play stable. I don't think he's a very good fragger. I actually think Apex, I think he's seen a lot of better days. That was a long time ago. I remember him being a top player. So the main issue is, if they're going to recruit people from the French team, there's nobody to replace
who do you
that.
go to?
So
Who do you go
You'll
to?
have to gamble on some unknown, basically.
I'm not completely done on them just yet because, like when we had the Cold Zero discussion about him joining mid-season and now actually having time to practice, but I want to see them come out of the gate hot in that regard, right? Okay. Now, with the stat line that we're talking about, if you head over to HLTV and you take out Shox when you filter by stats, because obviously MBK was on the roster before, in the 270 maps with the 4 of them, so that's ZywOo, Apex, Alex, and RPK, the KD differential, ZywOo, 1,662 plus 1,662. The next closest on his team is Apex with minus 35. Now, I don't know if any of you can do the maths, but that right there is quite the damning statistic, right? And one of the things that they always spoke about last year was the flash assists, right? Well, you look at this right here. Apex is the highest in that regard with 0.78, then RPK at 0.71, but then ZywOo is there at 0.69.
So he's right up there with the flash assist.
So you know, when you're looking at it from, obviously they're setting him up, right? You want to set up your star player. You want to use that tool as the spearhead of your attack, and of course that's what you do. But we need, and this is obviously they know this too. They just need to get a little bit more out of their individuals, because if you're already finding yourself as a top 5 team with the way things have been going, imagine if you can get another 20% out of every single player, or even imagine if you get 50% out of every single, or maybe 2 more names give you 50%, and the other 2 give you an extra 10%. Now you're talking about something that, because they had strats, they had like a decent way to approach the game. What they were lacking felt like, okay, well, obviously we'll just rely on ZywOo to run up banana with an AWP. That's not a way to win a game.
My problem with it is as well, remember towards the end of last year, they're like, oh, everyone just talks about ZywOo and the team and stuff. If that's not enough to motivate the rest of your players to step up, like, because everyone is just talking about ZywOo, then what else do they need in motivation for that? Because yes, at the beginning you can say, yeah, ZywOo joined, how it worked out, and yes, maybe we don't need to say it the whole time, but he proved the exact reason why.
Also, what sort of like whack-ass boomer logic is that? Like, oh, look, these kids today talking about this young guy. He got a few frags plus 1,600. Yeah, but, you know, like, they don't know what we're doing in the game. Like, go on then, explain what you are doing. Because as we just said there, you're doing competent, or sometimes some of you do pretty good. But the point is, the rest of the team, take ZywOo out of the equation, they don't deserve to be a top 5 team if you look at the rest of the squad right now. And this young guy is not just shining, he's doing impossible things. So I will say that's one thing I do find just mildly distasteful. It's not a big deal, but I just don't like the fact that in interviews, they don't really seem to go out of their way to praise ZywOo.
Have you heard the Fnatic angle?
It's a French thing. I'm just laughing over here right now because I'm seeing it from like the French angle where it's like, yes, that is how French society works. You have one guy who crushes, and then everybody else who's kind of there taking advantage and not really want to praise him, obviously, because, you know, that's not good. Everybody needs to be redistributed back down to all the rest of us who are just kind of like following it up. That's the French culture. That's the French way. There you go.
The Fnatic angle with Brolin, right, with him in the team is from the older guys, from the guys who have been in Fnatic forever, right, from the JWs of the world, from the Flushes of the world, who have been here since winning a major with them in 2013.
Sure.
They're like, yeah, Brolin's the future. And what they do is they try and pump him up in the game as much as they can. But still, Flusher and JWs has to reinvent himself as a player. I think the same thing has to be said for some of these names, like for Shox and Apex. I think the two of them, Apex already, you know, I've had a discussion with him and he said, yeah, you're going to focus on more being an all-round fragger. And the same thing with Shox. They need to kind of reinvent themselves as players in this team, because if they can step up, if they can find that extra impact we're talking about, then I think this team becomes a legit, you know, contender for trophies. But at the moment, the way what we saw, you know, last year, you should always be losing to an Astralis, right? You can't expect it just to be the ZywOo show. And going into 2020, like I said, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they've had time to practice and stuff now. So I want to see Vitality in the top 2 at this group stage, right? I want to see them in the top 2 of their group. If not, considering the circumstances that are around Na'Vi and obviously complexity, then I think they've underperformed, right?
Who do you favour right now, though? Obviously, everyone's put Astralis for. Who do you favour as number 2? Is it going to be Na'Vi or Vitality?
Like I said, I'll go with Vitality, because I think that the time that they've had to practice and stuff, I think that...
You think that'll edge out Na'Vi?
I'll take Na'Vi for this one.
Yeah, because Na'Vi just got a whole lot of experience on LAN right now with that roster. I was going to go with Vitality for the same reasoning. There was, you know, time for Vitality to prep and prac, but now Na'Vi have got a bit of a taste. They're going to have a couple days now. Well, no, not even. They're going to have tonight, and then they have to go into it tomorrow.
Yeah. The problem with that is whatever they've done is now all known.
Yeah, but they have harder fraggers as well.
Of course, yeah. I think pound for pound frag-wise, there's no question that Na'Vi, if we were just playing a map, would school Vitality. It wouldn't even be close, right? If you put Simple versus ZywOo, that one would be close, and then you put almost every single other name up against the other names on the other side of the server, the Na'Vi guys should walk away with that, right? But in terms of the fact that we haven't seen what Vitality has been doing since last year, means that they're going to come in here against Na'Vi, being able to, with all the information that they've just learned in the last couple of days. Sure, Na'Vi can change things around because they don't even know where they want to play right now. But they did some things, right? They had some things that were pretty good. They had some decent executes on certain maps, like Dust 2, where Perfecto doesn't need to learn anything too crazy. So I just think with Vitality coming in with the unknown factor and the hunger, I think that I'm like the FaZe stuff, right? I have to base that prediction off of what we don't know. Right? And the same thing with Vitality. I'm basing it off of what we couldn't possibly know unless we're a professional team practicing against them. I think Na'Vi, in terms of, like, if I was to put the two teams together and say, Chad, who do you think is going to be better by the end of the year? I would say Na'Vi. right? But I'm going to give Vitality the benefit of the doubt here that they have worked hard and they're going to come out with a fresh take and hopefully individuals performing above their standard of last year.
Well, do you want to leave it at that? Because we're going to get into closing thoughts now.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Yeah. Duncan, do you have anything to add?
That's fine.
You think that's fine? James?
No, we're good.
Good. All right, well, then
Nice
that's
and
going to be it as far as the backstage, the debate is concerned. Thanks to everybody who participated as well in the twits. We didn't quite get to you, but be sure to keep
There
that
wasn't
up.
any good ones.
Yeah, okay. Sponge was the judge, but be sure to keep that up throughout the next 3 days. Obviously, as we play out through Group B. Also, be sure to pick up your tickets for the global final, or for the final rather, the spring final that's going to be going down in Moscow. So you want to hop on that and follow the social for Blast. Fresh memes every day, delivered hot. So we'll be back tomorrow, kicking off Group B. It is going to be super sick. Astralis versus Complexity and Vitality Na'Vi. So you don't want to miss it. We'll see you then.
Welcome to the Blast Series Moscow! There might be 3 out to the 1v1 and he'll tap the